to 15 minutes. Gabriel, Veronica, can you hear us online?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. If you'd like, we can get started. I can run the meeting if you'd like. I know Vice Chair Rodriguez is on her way in. Jeremiah, I don't know if you're on your way in or if you're joining us online for the duration of the meeting. With that, of the board members who are present, if you'd like, we can get started. I'm happy to help run the meeting if you'd like. Okay. Okay, great. It is 5:35 p.m. and we will start this meeting. Let me just open something. All right, it is 5:36 p.m. We will call the meeting to order. We are going to start with roll call. Gabriel Maya. He's present online. I'm assuming he's driving. Marie Rodriguez is absent at this time. Jürgen Hohn.
Present.
Anthony Dispenseri.
Present.
Sarah Horseman.
Here.
Ed Park.
Present.
Veronica Sharma.
Present.
All right, thank you. Marie Rodriguez is here. Thank you, Marie. Corey Munson, Pablo Nava-Duran, Lauren Kroll, and Valerie Tilson will be absent tonight. With that, we have a quorum of the Ward 3 Neighborhood Advisory Board. We are going to move into public comment. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the NAB's agenda. The NAB may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you are an attendee in the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment at this time, please raise your hand. Jackson Crawford, did you want to provide comment under general public comment or under a specific agenda item tonight? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, with that, I do not have any other public comment cards or anyone on person or on anyone online. So with that, Marie, do you want to take over? Or do you want me to continue? Okay, great. Approval of the agenda.
Moving on to item A3, approval of the agenda. This is for possible action. Do we have a motion for that?
Jürgen Hohen, approved.
So sorry, can I interject? I forgot. We're going to move item C1 before our development items tonight. So we'll do A6, C1, and then we'll move into the B items, and then we'll finish with C2. Sorry about that.
Just for clarification, C2 will remain in where it's at?
Yes, after
Okay.
the development items. Thank you.
Did we
I'll
have a
make-
motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended per the discussion. Anthony Dispenseri.
Jürgen Hohen, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item A4, approval of the minutes for today. Also for possible action, do we have a motion on that?
Motion to approve. Anthony Dispenseri.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Sarah Horseman, second.
With a motion and a second, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Approval of the minutes, motion carries. Is our council liaison not here? Oh, there you are. Sorry. Okay. Thank you, Vice Mayor Martinez.
Of course. Good evening, everybody. Thank you once again for being here. I know we have some big items coming up, so I won't take up too much time, but just to remind you that our next city council meeting is on August 12th, and one of the bigger items that we have scheduled is to talk about our bill draft request to the state legislature. So if you have any suggestions or things we should look at, whether it's dealing with our charter or any of our municipal codes or revised statutes that affect our city that you all want us to be aware of, make sure you submit any information to us, and we'll make sure to include that in our conversations with folks once the legislature starts here soon. You all heard the presentation from the school district about the Pine campus and the new elementary school, and that was approved by the Planning Commission, and some of that conditions for approval that were submitted dealt with traffic mitigation, so there aren't as many impacts, and then pedestrian safety features that have to be included to ensure that our parents and students are able to get home and to school safely. The other item, I have a few, so I can submit these and share these with you all after the meeting. But the other one I wanted to share is that we have our biggest little council connect with me, your ward representative. So if anybody out in the community wants a more casual way to meet with their representative, they can come to Romer Coffee House on August 8th, which is this Saturday from 10 to 11, and we'll be in there providing free coffees for any community members that want to come out and talk with me about any issues going on and make sure that we're aware of that. Our Parks and Rec department is also putting on a couple of swim movies. So if you've gone to the Moana pool, you have seen the larger pool, and that has a scoreboard, and they play movies there on Saturdays and Sundays. So if you want more information and like to attend to see what movie is going to be available, you can call this aquatic facility at 775-393-1070. We're also doing a biking with rangers on August 22nd at 10 a.m. at Miraloma Park. So if anybody would like to join us from our community, whether it's kids or families, welcome to come by on the 22nd at Miraloma Park at 10 a.m. and ride with some of our rangers. For those of you traveling east from west this evening, you probably noticed some closures along Virginia Street and other side streets. Hot August Nights is upon us, and so for those that want to participate, that's going on. A big community event. More information is at hotaugustnights.net. With all of that, we also have many activation projects that the city has supported or is a part of, like House by the River, Harmony on the River, or the antique fairs that are happening. So all of that can be found on our Reno.gov/calendar website. I won't take up more information. I have other things I want to share with you all, but we can do that after. We have a couple of items that are coming up, and I'd love to hear what you all think about the items that are happening here. So I'm open to any questions that you may have, or we can move on to the agenda depending on how you all are feeling. Let me off the hook
Looks like
this
no
time.
questions. So thank you. Vice Mayor Martinez,
Thank you all. Looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Item A6, our staff liaison report.
Thank you, Marie. I'm staff liaison Callie Shai. I just have a couple of reminders today. The first reminder is Reno Direct, the city's non-emergency service center for any members of the board or members of the public. If you have any questions, general inquiries, or service requests, please direct them to Reno Direct via phone or online service request at Reno.gov/Reno Direct. In the next few weeks, you all will receive a quarterly quorum email for the last quarter of the year. So keep an eye out for that and let me know if you will be in attendance. Another reminder to sign up for city newsletters, especially the Ward 3 development projects and council agendas newsletters, as well as any others you might be interested in. This ensures you stay informed about your community, including news, events, and updates specific to your ward. Additionally, we have the Reno Report, which provides a snapshot of the latest Reno news from City Manager Jackie Bryant. Please make sure you submit feedback with your worksheets for tonight's development projects by Monday. As a reminder, the worksheets are the best way to ensure your feedback is noted on the public record and included for consideration in the Planning Commission and/or City Council's review of projects. Additionally, one board officer is required to provide public comment on behalf of the NAB at all future public hearings for each development project. These public comments should summarize community feedback and NAB member discussion on the project. Only one officer needs to provide comment, but multiple can submit. That's all I have tonight. Coming up, we have Planning Commission tomorrow at 6 p.m. where we will hear the 55 South Wells Auto Service and Repair Project we heard in June. Additionally, we have City Council next Wednesday, August 12th, and our next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, October 6th. Happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Seeing no questions, we'll move on then to item C1.
Great, yep.
Marie,
Oh.
this is Sarah Horseman for the record.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Do we have someone that is regularly submitting the public comment from this Ward 3? Or will you let us know, Callie, if,
Yeah,
There's a-
not that I've seen.
Okay.
That's something the chair, vice chair, and secretary can kind of decide amongst themselves.
okay,
Other board members are also welcome to provide comment.
okay, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
Sorry, Marie.
Okay. And do we have any comments from those who are on Zoom by any chance?
Board members or public comment?
Board members on the liaison report.
Gabriel or Veronica, anything to add?
No comments.
Chair Maya, yeah, not necessarily comment on, but later on I'll get with the vice chair and the secretary so we can decide how we're gonna break it up for the discussion for planning commission and to move forward.
Okay, great.
Right. We'll move on then now to item C1, the quarterly update from the Reno Police Department, and this is for discussion only.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, I guess. It's been a long day already, so I apologize. Corey Solferino for the record. With me is my Assistant Chief Sean Garlock and Lieutenant Tom Uturbity. We want to take this opportunity to give you a quarterly update from our transition time over at the Reno Police Department. And it is not moving. Wonderful. There we go. One of the things that we wanted to focus on since we came in during the transition, March 9th to when I was appointed on May 20th, is establishing that internal trust and communication, not only with the council, but with our neighborhoods, with our community, and with the department communication, strengthen our staffing, improving communication with our community, expanding transparency. And I want to talk about why I hate that word in a second, because I think people use it in tongue in cheek, and to me, actions speak louder than words. So I don't like saying that we're being transparent. I want to show that we're transparent. And then managing current enforcement priorities specific to the wards, because we do know that our communities are different throughout Ward 1 to Ward 6, and what those important talking points are for the constituents of those given areas, and making sure that your police department is answering those constituent concerns. As we start talk about rebuilding internal trust and communication, as we establish our command structure and empowering our men and women to do things, this is something that I really want to reiterate to the public and to you sitting here today, is that despite what did happen and the circumstances of how we came into leadership positions within the Reno Police Department, the men and women continue to answer the call. The men and women continue to do the job on a daily basis, and that it goes unchanged. And I don't think that that gets stated enough. You've seen us take kind of a different brand with social media and talk about all of the cases and crimes that are happening in our community. Previously, I don't think that we celebrated enough the amount of guns our gang unit was taking off the streets, and the amount of prohibited people that we were targeting on each and every day, and making sure that there was future victimology that wasn't happening because our teams were doing what they were entrusted to do. And that's one of the reasons I'm proud to have Watch Commander Tom Uturbity up here with me this evening, is because he is one of those individuals that is leading those teams on a daily basis. As far as notifications are concerned, when bad things happen after hours and a member of our community is hurt, or there's a tragic accident, or some of our men and women are hurt and they have to do the notification thing, there's nothing myself or Assistant Chief Garlock can do in that moment. These men, these women are leading those teams, making those critical decisions, and making sure that our community is cared for while we sleep, on the holiday weekends, after hours when we're not in the building. So I just want to commend them for their performance. One of the things that we also want to focus on is greater visibility and availability of our leadership. I've got kind of the mantra when I walk around through the building, and I know Assistant Chief Garlock does too: if you're up, we're up. I don't want you guys to worry about not making the phone call, not making the notification, not having the resources that you need to do your job. So we've reinforced that time and time through, that if they're up, we're up, and if they need us, we will be there. I think it's important to this comes from a kid who was raised by a Sears corporate executive after 40 years. Most people don't know what Sears, Roebuck and Company was, but there was something to be said for management by walking around, getting to know your people and their space, understanding their needs, and not just waiting for people to come up to the colloquial ivory tower. There's something to be said by managing by walking around. So you're going to see us out in the community. You're going to see us on ride-alongs. You're going to see us at the NABs, not just delegating those to the line level officers or our watch commanders. I think there needs to be proof in our pudding, and that's what we're going to do moving forward. Structured engagement with our bargaining groups. I think the unions are very important to sit down and talk to, understand needs, assessments. As we start getting into the areas where we know that we had positions frozen a couple years ago. We know that this is our second or third year without new officer positions. How can we leverage our footprint by what we have right now? We know our community is growing. We know that there are certain needs to different wards and constituents, and I know that Ward 3 is no different than some of the others. Two of the top concerns, and we're going to talk today because I want to get feedback from you guys on what is important to you. Speeding and traffic issues and citations, e-bikes, and parking. Those are things that we've been focusing on specifically as I've worked with Vice Mayor Martinez, as he's communicated to me things that are important to him that he wants us to focus on. And I want to hear it from you guys as well to make sure that we're meeting that benchmark. But it's important because the labor unions understand what's happening with the rank and file. And the further that I'm removed from a police car on the day-to-day, I can pretend I know what that job was 10 years ago, but I haven't been in a police car in 10 years doing that job on the day-to-day. As we start outfitting and buying new vehicles and leveraging technology and putting everything that we are into there, I don't know what those demands look like. So I really rely on, honestly, managing by walking around, hearing from the troops themselves and what the labor union is bringing to us to tell us what some of the issues that their membership is bringing back to them. As we start talking about strengthening staffing, obviously the Reno Police Department has been a victim of several tragedies over the course of the last 12 months, and officer wellness is key to our investment moving forward, our investment in our community, our investment in our people. Just so you guys know a little bit about me, when I wrote my master's thesis, I wrote it on general strain theory and maladaptive coping strategies and how that affects police legitimacy. Long story short, if you leave a broken cop broken for too long, they're going to make dumb decisions and bad things are going to happen as a result of that. So the more that we can take care of their wellness, not get to a point where they are hurting constantly, whether it was an on-duty injury and now they're trying to work to get their way back and they're finding therapy in a bottle or therapy on prescription medication, whether or not they're making good decisions or bad financial decisions. We want to make sure that we are there for them in more ways than just one. So it's not just come to briefing, get your assignments, go out to patrol and do goodwill. It's really our sergeants, our watch commanders having a good span of control, understanding when Corey's not being Corey and diving in a little bit further. Furthermore, looking into those early warning detection systems and what we're doing with officer complaints, officer use of forces, pursuits. Sometimes those are justified depending upon their unit they are. I expect our canines to be involved in use of forces. I expect our canines to be involved in pursuits because we give them tools and technology to go and take down those most dangerous offenders. But if I've got a South District officer that's predominantly in an area that doesn't have a whole lot of crime, and they've got 4 citizen complaints, 4 pursuits, and 4 uses of forces, I'm probably going to dive in to go, okay, what's going on here with that individual? Is this an anomaly? So the more that we can get ingrained into our officers, that early warning detection, we don't lose that public trust. One thing that I will tell all of you here today is I am thankful for our community. I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for the level of support that we have in the city of Reno. When you're in a career for 27 years and you get to travel the globe literally and travel the United States and attend different command colleges, and you have individuals that are majors or chiefs or sheriffs of major metropolitans like Louisville, NYPD, Chicago, LA, and maybe they're dealing with a lack of community trust and several scandals and police corruption, that we are overwhelmingly supported here, almost to the point now where it gets embarrassing when you walk in or you're in uniform and somebody thanks me for their service or thanks me for my service. And I say, I thank you for your support, because we are privileged to truly get to work and serve in a community that is overwhelmingly supported. Are we perfect? Absolutely not, but we strive to be better each and every day. And I think the relationship that we have with our community, they understand that. So when things do happen that make tabloid news or clickbait media or one of the 3 major networks, we can say that that's not reflective of our police department here. That might be reflective of theirs, but not here. So thank you guys for that. Officer wellness and retention. We are planning to have a 25 to 30 person academy just to keep up with attrition. And just to let you guys know what that is, from the time an officer applies to the time that they go through the testing process, which is a written and a physical, the background process through the academy. That's up to 19 weeks now, I believe, Tom, 22 weeks. I even missed 3. 22 weeks, and then go through their extensive patrol training officer program. Takes about 18 months on the average to get that officer hired and online on their own. So while it might say that we were only 20 bodies down, right now we currently have 30 people that are in training. We have 10 at the academy and 20 that are in different phases of the patrol training program that just graduated in June. We run 2 academies a year, so that's our only opportunity outside of those lateral officers that do meet criteria that we can bring in state, train in-house, and put immediately out to patrol training without the luxury of an academy. So we have to be very strategic. We don't want to lower our standards. I think we have done a good job in our recruitment. We can be better. So we're going to be continuing to push hard on the recruitment front and kind of reimagine some different units that we have within the Reno Police Department to focus on recruiting year round, not just specific to testing times. We are fortunate in the sense that we work with civil service and we have an open recruitment. Currently, we have a list of about a little over 100. When I was a background investigator, and I hate to say back in my day, it usually took us 10 applicants to get 2. That was kind of the average. So by the time you called that individual, they took the written test, they passed the physical, they went through the background, they passed the psychological profile, they passed the medical exam. We had to go through 10 names to get 2. So obviously, with our numbers being rather aggressive for the January Academy, just to keep up with attrition, I'm a little worried that we don't have enough on the list to be able to fill that academy, but we will continue to push forward on that because having a strong staffing affects other officer wellness. If my people, our people are continually working overtime assignments, not getting days off, or continuing to have to come in early, hold over, that affects their wellness. We want our officers well rested. We want them to be able to enjoy their time away with their family, but we also want our community to celebrate and work in a space, especially right now where we've had a series of back-to-back-to-back special events that sign up for those assignments that make sure that we can bring our families out and they can celebrate Hot August Nights, the Wing Fest, and everything else that our council's bringing to our community. We understand that there needs to be a public safety piece with that, and we want our officers well rested and well represented for that. Clean and safe and park rangers under RPD. So we are working with the city manager's office in the city of Reno to regionalize efforts with what we're doing towards our unhoused population. I understand this is a drastic shift from where we were just 6 years ago. If you guys remember when I was wearing a green uniform, I was criminalizing homelessness as a undersheriff trying to bring home a illegal camping ordinance that mirrored the cities of Reno and Sparks, because the problem is not displacing our unsheltered population from one jurisdiction to the next. It's working regionally to make sure that we are getting the resources to those that are service acceptant, but for those service resistant individuals that we are pushing them towards a pathway to services. I think everyone would agree that I'd rather be the mean police and have people not die in our heat right now that we're dealing with multiple triple digit days, or in the winter when we have several days that are under freezing where we lose people out to the environmental factors that are happening out there, versus just doing what's right, getting some people programming, getting some people some mental health. One of the things I didn't say yesterday during my presentation, where I have the unique ability to kind of discuss, and unfortunately our police officers don't get to see it because they don't start their careers in the jail. Coming over from the sheriff's office, we start our careers in the jail, and then we provide a pathway out to operations. And it's really liberating and enlightening to see somebody come in at their worst day, get stabilized, get on their medication, maybe work on an OTP, which is an opioid treatment program, and get balanced. What the key to success, the secret sauce, is keeping that individual through that continuity of care when they get released from 911 Park Boulevard, and not come right back down to Believe Plaza or a park and continue with their vices, continue with their addiction, continue with their old crew, so to speak. So when we look into evidence-based practices and intelligence-led policing, the only thing statistically significant in almost any research that you see that helps curb recidivism is education and programming. And that's where we're missing the mark, where our officers are forced to make a decision on a holiday weekend in the middle of the night to be sympathetic to somebody and get them off the street. And less than 72 hours later, they're back down in that same spot, resisting services, resisting some of their ability to conform. We need to be better as a community, bringing those resources to bear working with some of the wonderful antagonistic drugs that are out there like Sublocade that actually give people a fighting chance for opioid addiction. And you can actually get a shot in custody if you volunteer for it. And working with Medicaid can get 2 additional shots outside of custody. And it gives them an 18-month fighting chance to not go chase that dragon, chase that high. So those are the things that we're trying to work with our HOPE teams, working together more regionally and bringing Clean and Safe and Park Rangers under one umbrella at the Reno Police Department. So we're working coordinated, not independent of one another. Lieutenant Schlesinger is going to be spearheading that as we work through the consolidation efforts going over the next 4 months, bringing those to fruition. And our current academy underway, we started with 11. Unfortunately, we lost one already, but we have 10. We've got 10 prime people. Hopefully that they will all graduate in December as we gear up for that January academy next year and try to plan for attrition. One of the things that we've done to improve community communication is, number one, we're here this evening to talk to you guys, make sure that we're present in the NABs, make sure that we're present in council, that we're forward facing. Every month, myself and Chief Cochran from Fire, in conjunction with the mayor, host a public safety brief at the Public Safety Center. So we usually try to hit politically sensitive hot topics that the community is aware of so that we can answer those questions that are happening and give a platform by which we can give a response and have a Q&A with the media. Additionally, we brought back the Chiefs Advisory Panel, the Community Impact Panel, and here tonight at the Neighborhood Advisory Boards. What those other panels provide is an opportunity for us to work with our stakeholders on what I say both sides of the aisle. I had the fortune or misfortune of how you read into it of being a public safety lobbyist down in Carson City while I was representing the sheriff's office for 3 regular, 3 special sessions. And nothing was more, what's the word I'm looking for? Perfect, for lack of a better word. When you sat down in front of the Senate Judiciary or Assembly Judiciary and you had law enforcement agree on a bill, the District Attorneys Association agree on a bill, the public defenders agree on a bill, and the ACLU. You've then looked at a policy matter through several different lenses, and while we might not have agreed with it wholeheartedly, we were able to come to consensus. And that's one of the things that having the Chiefs Advisory Panel and the Community Impact Panel is bringing in those different focus groups, those different priorities, those different perspectives. So when we make decisions on technology, when we make decisions on community policing, when we make decisions on things that we want to do in Reno that might not be done elsewhere because we do have a very supportive community, that we're looking at that from a complete and total lens. So I think that's very beneficial feedback for not only my command staff and I, but for our community so that we can go and say, no, this has been vested. And we have literally the support of all of these entities across the board. So I think we are in good space moving there. Expanding transparency. One of the things that I have is the support of the city manager's office. They've been amazing. Christy Smith and Kayla and Ashlyn are here with us this evening, making sure that I don't screw up their presentation as bringing forward of everything that we want to talk about. But it's really important because one of the things I saw when I walked in is we weren't consistent in what we were reporting to the community. I think it's important to have a state of the Reno Police Department and what we're doing on a yearly basis that is completed year over year. So we are comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges. It's easy for me to come up here and talk to you guys about all of our successes because literally great cop work happens every single day. But I also want to come before you and say, hey, we missed the mark on here and this is how we missed it, and eat a little bit of crow, so to speak, because I don't claim to be perfect, but I think it's important for the public to know $120 million to the Reno Police Department annual for our budget is a lot of money. I understand that. And when a lot of that money is going towards salary and benefits, you need to know what that investment is getting you as far as our reduction on crime strategies or how we're using intelligence-led policing. Or as I get to, I know the political hot topic about traffic enforcement's coming up and we're a third of the size we were 20 years ago. How do we do that and be effective with a community that's growing around us? So I think that annual report and our ability to come up before you and talk to those things will help exponentially understand the why. I didn't understand that until I became a chief and an undersheriff and a chief deputy, when if you take 5 more minutes to explain the why and get the buy-in, it goes a long way. And I think we've missed that mark with the public. So that's my commitment to you, is to be able to explain the why we do certain things or why we might not talk about this particular crime in the media right now as it's still being investigated. Again, I hate the word transparency. I think actions speak louder than words. I want to be transparent. We want to be able to show those things that we're doing that are forward facing. But sometimes a criminal investigation doesn't afford me the ability to talk about everything right now. But once we get to that point, when the case has been adjudicated or has been submitted to the district attorney's office, then we can start talking about the why. We just don't want the ability to potentially sour a jury pool or procedurally get somebody off that we want to prosecute. And those are the things I think we can do a better job of describing. I'm very big into analytics and intelligence-led policing. We've invested a lot in our real-time information center, an intelligence center, and I want to be able to show you guys how we're leveraging technology, how we're solving crimes, how we're exponentially driving down vehicle burglaries in spaces where we have used our drone as a first responder, or we have used some of the things that we were doing on 4th Street in conjunction with our business community. I think everybody in here would be lying if they said that 4th Street when we were growing up coming through here wasn't an area that we wanted to desire. Now you can drive down it, and I hope you've seen a noticeable difference in the last 6 months as we've worked in conjunction with the state police, with the sheriff's office, even with the University Police Services, in conjunction with the Reno Police Department to make sure that 4th Street, also known as Old US 40, so that's why the state police are down there helping us patrol an old state route, is able to bring all of those resources to bear to make sure that we are supporting our business, our infrastructure, our community, where it needs it most, is that revitalized area of downtown Reno. But working together in regional collaboration is much more efficient than trying to tackle this animal on our own. But the crime data and tracking reporting will be extremely important to us. As we start talking about internal affairs activity, and we've redone our Reno PD website, we're currently going through our entire policy manual. When Chief Garlock and I came in here, I looked at a program that we had purchased and had some misfortune with it wearing the other uniform. So we were able to save $110,000, cancel that contract, and use something currently that the city of Reno is using for their policies through Power DMS. One of the nice things about Power DMS and our unions working with our attorneys and with our executive staff is once we agree on the policy and we get it vetted, that we can publish it in Power DMS. And ultimately, once all of those policies are approved, rather than you having to know, well, what's the Reno Police Department's policy on immigration or technology or search and seizure or what have you, rather than having to call Reno Direct or place a FOIA request, all of that information will be published on our forward-facing webpage. So that's something that we're moving towards right now. Additionally, with our internal affairs activity, we've made some changes up there. I want to be able to publish our use of force data. We report those to the State Attorney General's office every year. I think the public should know what our use of force data and our complaints look like as well. So you can see how many use of forces that we are using a year, what those use of forces resulted in. Was it personal weapons? Was it baton? Was it OC? Was it taser? Or was it a deadly force encounter? So those are things to come too that we're going to put forward facing because, again, I believe in doing it, not saying the T word. And as we talk about that last rung on there, review, revision, and posting of all our RPD policies, I wish I could get that done tomorrow, but that would be foolish and that would be negligent on my part. So we continue to have biweekly meetings where we're meeting with all of those vested groups to vet all of our policies and get those forward. So as we continue to do that, I will give you guys updates, but we are moving towards that goal. We're also trying to do something that helps our officers. I don't think a 22-page policy helps drive decision-making, nor can I effectively hold officers accountable for those 22 pages. So again, we're trying to get back to basics. We're trying to focus on patrol, focus on supporting patrol and the rank and file and getting back to basics and making policies that make good sense, that protect our officers, that protect our citizens, and protect the Reno Police Department. As we start talking about managing current enforcement priorities, I can see it in all your faces. Traffic enforcement is at the top of the list for most. I guarantee that is probably our number one. That parking and e-bikes is a lot of our Reno Direct service requests. So I have 3 radar trailers that collect data, because again, I'm a big data guy. So if you might see them in Ward 6 coming to a ward near you, Ward 3 and Ward 4 next, we're collecting data to see when our peak time of operation is and when the innocent motoring public is maybe in a little bit of a hurry to get to work or get to home, and maximize our time out there with our 8 motors, our 2 sergeants, and our soon-to-be lieutenant over that area. Because as you can see, there are limited resources when I only have in a city this big now, literally 10 people that are out there on the daily riding bikes doing that enforcement piece. One of the things that I will ask you for too is your help. As we move forward, coming up into a legislative year, we've seen a significant impact on our ability to write a ticket when it was removed from the criminal 484 chapter into the civil chapter. So writing a ticket doesn't change behavior like it used to. There was usually a thing when we were young officers and we were out there talking to the public. Sometimes that interaction at the door side corrected the driving behavior, just the shock of being pulled over. Sometimes it was a citation to get their attention, and the next thing obviously was an arrest. With the citation, we have a lot of complaints about the lack of registered vehicles on our roadways. I get a lot of those. Would it shock you if I told you that you could be cited 10 times for not having a registered vehicle and it was still cheaper than registering a new vehicle in the state of Nevada? Those were some of the unintended consequences that we talked about it when we were down in Carson City working through those. And I think Senator Women is wonderful and will probably be part of leadership. I think this is one of the things that there's a few more of those civil infractions that need to be brought back to the criminal side to give us some teeth to do our job and correct the driving behavior. We're not trying to be overly punitive. We're not trying to impoverish the lower socioeconomic class, but we have to, at the end of the day, change the behavior. And if our ability to change the behavior is stopped, then we have to reimagine what we're doing out there and being able to do it, because I'm sick of getting notifications about road rage incidents and that people are dying on our streets and they're driving too fast. And number one is we have to be out there, we have to be present, and we have to correct that driving behavior. So that's how it does the enforcement piece. E-bike enforcement, also I know a big topic of conversation. I want to get a regionalized push. So we've worked with Captain Colacurcio from the Washoe County Sheriff's Office. I met with Chief Crawforth today. We're going to work with a City of Sparks Police Department representative. So we have the same messaging going across the board. This isn't I don't think it's a childhood issue. I think it's a parenting issue. A lot of the people that are out there are not using responsibly. If you guys belong to any neighborhood apps, whether it's South Reno Moms or one of the other different community groups, you will see that we love ratting out people that are driving poorly in our neighborhoods, or kids, people coming together to make sure that those kids are held accountable. I think as we start doing education, I came into the game a little bit late to try to get in before the end of the school year. So as we tried to hit all of the schools before kids broke for the summer, we just literally couldn't get in on their curriculum. Now that school's starting next week, we're going to work actively with our community engagement teams to get into the schools, talk about what it looks like to be responsible e-bike riders, and honestly work with the state legislators next year to regulate these things a little bit more closely, because quite frankly, some of those things can gear up 45, 50 miles an hour and they weigh a couple 100 pounds and can do some damage. And our kids just aren't out there in a safe space. So we want to make sure that we're bringing that back in, because I love to recreate. We live in Reno because we love the outdoors. And I don't want to take something away from people when used responsibly as an excellent recreational tool. Next, we're going to talk about our Heat and Hope teams. I had a great meeting today with the sheriff and with Chief Crawforth, talking about those regional collaborations and how we work better together across jurisdictional lines. So our Hope team is our homeless outreach, proactive engagement. Heat is our human exploitation and trafficking team, making sure that we're working together regionally across jurisdictions and getting more bang for our buck. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Lieutenant Uturbity to talk about crimes in Ward 3.
Thank you, Chief. Evening, everybody. My name's Tom Uturbity. I'm a lieutenant with Reno PD. Been here almost 23 years. I got to mention it yesterday. I sat on and I wasn't part of the NAB meeting, but I got to attend in this fashion as an officer, a probationary officer, when we were at Wooster High School in the gym. So long time ago, but here to share the information for the ward. Top 5 Reno Direct calls that RPD is receiving. Again, these can change on the wards, but Reno Direct is really the avenue that everybody should use for non-emergency calls, just to push information to the correct department. Sometimes we'll get stuff, if it's handed directly to us, that may need to go to Parks or Public Works or something else like that. So using Reno Direct is a very good benefit. You can see up there that illegal parking, graffiti, requests for additional patrol, and that could be anywhere from area checks to speeders to other items that RPD can handle. Traffic, as the chief mentioned, again, speeding, big topics, again, needing some change through legislature, but also a boost. I come from an era where my father worked for RPD. He rode motors, and we had 32 motors at one time. So vastly different from what we have right now. So boosting our numbers there, and I'll ask the chief for some help there later on. Next is our dispatch calls or self-initiated calls. The top one is generally EMS advisories, but that's one of those ones that we see as a medical call that we might push off to REMSA or even RFD for assistance, because it's not necessarily something that RPD can handle. We always like to go out and help, but if somebody's in a medical emergency, get the tool where it needs to be, okay? Traffic stops, we get out there being proactive, meeting with the community and helping that contact to educate, and if necessary, citations. Unwanted subjects, just walking in here today with Hot August Nights rolling, started talking to some of the community members that are there and also the vendors that are out asking for some assistance right here in Believe Plaza. So we'll be out there for the next, I think it's 4 or 5 days. So again, just the assistance. Family disturbance. It's been hot out. People are upset sometimes because you get locked into a house. But obviously we have to go to family disturbances, figure out what's going on. Some of those can end up being violent. We end up taking arrests or making reports. And then just area checks again, going along with the request for additional patrols. So top 5 reports varying from the calls for service. Those are ones that we initiate or are dispatched to, but maybe not necessarily take a report. These are the top 5 reports we're taking for Ward 3. So again, domestic battery reports. State-driven, legislatively mandated that we determine that topic, and we have to take a report or make an arrest. Next one being the destruction of property. Stuff gets broken out there. If it's maliciously done, we try and help people. Okay, commercial burglaries, those can vary and swing depending on what's going on. Sometimes people are out there at crimes of opportunity. Otherwise, it could be somebody that maybe be handled more, especially by one of our regional users, like Chief Sulfurino mentioned. Simple batteries kind of goes along the lines with the domestic batteries, but again, to a simpler extent of there's no intimate relationship or no familial relationship. So 2 people on the street crossing by, they get into an argument because they can't agree about something. Somebody gets hurt, we got to take care of that. And then grand larcenies of motor vehicles. I mentioned this yesterday. It's getting hot out there. People like to keep their cars cool, but unfortunately they don't always lock those doors with their keys in the ignition, and people steal them. Opposite end is during the cold months when they try and heat them up. So just an education piece. People got to be responsible for their property, but we'll go out and help them when we need to. Okay? I'll pass it back off to the chief.
Couple of things that we wanted to take the opportunity this evening to ask you are, what are your community concerns specific to Ward 3? What are things that we're making the mark, or where are we missing the mark? What types of community engagement or transparency from RPT would you be most helpful? I kind of told each and every one of you this evening what I thought we were missing as an outsider looking in and what we wanted to work on over the course of the next year. But as we establish our relationships in this room, what are things that are important to Ward 3 specifically to you that you want to see from the Reno Police Department? And have you noticed any trends specific to your neighborhood that you think RPD or the city should be aware of? Obviously, it didn't make it in Ward 6 last night when we did this presentation, but high up on your list was the graffiti. So working with RGU to identify those taggers, working with our graffiti abatement team to make sure that they're not tagging areas repeatedly or they're not staying there very long, that we're addressing those needs to specifically your constituents, your areas, or anything else that we may not be aware of. That's what we wanted to start having those conversations, making these relationships so we can start meeting those demands. And then obviously stay connected. Really want to talk about how we're trying to brand what we're doing, how we're leveraging technology, how our officers are continually to do amazing police work each and every day. Despite our failures, I always try to remind our staff, like, each and every day, good police work happened today. And sometimes we don't celebrate the successes. We focus on the negatives, and we're trying to change that narrative. I need to be aware of the marks that we're not making, but also don't want to discredit our officers for all the amazing work that they're doing each and every day. So like Lieutenant Uturbity said, that kind of perfect non-emergency number, Reno Direct, where we can literally triage and focus and track those service requests. That is the way to do it. Reno.pd.com, as we start to get our policies up to date, our forward forcing transparency data through IA, and with some of our technology, that is a place where you're going to go see it. And then obviously our amazing PIO, Hunter Mercurio, likes to highlight what our officers are doing on a daily basis through Instagram, through Facebook. And when we have certain community events where we need to like warn the public on a large scale, we will use social media to do that for whether it's fire evacuations or significant incidents or areas where we may have them blocked off for several hours due to police activity. And with that, we'd happy to be entertaining any questions.
This is Sarah Horseman for the record. Thank you for the presentation. I know as you've addressed and mentioned, there's a significant distrust in the community following the previous leadership of Reno Police Department. And some of that I know is not, fully on RPD. The mayor's office and the city manager's office has not provided the public with any information about that. I know that said, I know there's going to be a change in political leadership. And so with the upcoming election, so with you stepping in and with an election, there's a lot of opportunity for change. I know one of the things I'm concerned about and the community is flock surveillance cameras that's continued to be voted on by city council members, even when the community has expressed concerns. I know it's something that Chief Nance really touted, and she was really praised by leadership for doing that. But I think what would be helpful for the community is if the police department and the city could share, honestly, like here are intended impacts and unintended impacts, because it does harm people. But I've also heard from the community with the installation of flock cameras that they have not been able to get their car, if they had a car stolen or if they had camera footage of a crime, they still haven't been able to be solved. And I know there could be multiple reasons for that, and it's not one factor. So I would say being transparent and open about the impacts of that. And I know that might be in conjunction with the city. Also, I know that and you don't have to comment on this today, but I know that there's been discussion or talk about the Reno Police Department merging with the Washoe County Sheriff's Office. I'm to my understanding, I don't know a lot about law enforcement, but that is something that is Metro Police Department and Clark County may be similar. So I think and again, I don't know if this would be you or the city council, keeping the community abreast of what those discussions are. I think to restore trust in the leadership, especially as you mentioned, like so much of the city's budget goes to RPD, and I understand why with positions, but again, just as a community member and wanting to instill trust. And then also, I know there's also been concerns about inconsistencies when it comes to public records requests, especially body cam footage. So I think if there's consistencies there, that would be helpful in restoring trust. And I know my NAB members will have more about community things. I think just as a whole, I wanted to share, and I appreciate you guys sharing and listening.
Thank you. I can make a couple of statements, I think, respect to that, because you tackled a lot of political hot topics. I think NRS 289, which is the Peace Officers Bill of Rights that talks about administrative investigations, is laid out. If you guys want to read it, it basically speaks to the confidentiality of a police investigation. We're one of very few states in the entire 50 states that has that. So that's why the mayor, the manager, or ourselves can't really speak to those matters at any great length. That's protected by statute. If we were to change it at the upcoming legislation, that might change the parameters a little bit, but we're bound by confidentiality and what we can and can't discuss. Moving forward to talk about flock, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there too. We haven't taken a very big political step in talking about that. When I was at the sheriff's office, one of the first things that we did, we were getting killed on our recreational areas and in the parks with vehicle burglaries. Again, this is a beautiful place. People like to go out. Unfortunately, like Lieutenant Ucherity talked about, the education piece, right? When you go out to start your car in the morning thinking that you're not going to see targets of opportunity and come back out after 15 minutes and taking the dog for a break and getting your cup of coffee and your car's gone. Two, we have to remind people to not keep their firearms in their vehicles unsecured, or laptops or things valuable. So when they go out and recreate in our beautiful community, whether it's along the river, in a county or city park, that they aren't victims of crime. I will tell you that we drove down crime exponentially the second that we introduced cameras into the county parks. So while we don't have cameras everywhere, I know that there's a lot of people that talk about Fourth Amendment protections. There is no reasonable expectation of privacy in a public space. So no different than the sheriff's helicopter flying patrols on Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. That same point of view, when we start looking at our return on investment, does it make more sense to have a helicopter and a pilot up there roving patrols at several $100s per hour? Or can we fly a drone over, back off our patrols? We just posted one the other night where we engaged in a pursuit. Gentlemen started going wrong way traffic. We terminated the pursuit. Our drones were able to follow that. And we were able to bring that person into custody without endangering the public, without pushing that issue. So literally, as we're not able to get new bodies or additional positions or boots on the ground, technology is the space by which we are going to be that force multiplier. And the real-time intelligence centers that have been stood up in Chicago, in San Francisco, in Oakland, in Philadelphia, in our nation's capital in New York City, those are what are giving us the ability to actually identify suspects where they were dispatched an officer before, and by the time we got there, we were UTL. We were unable to locate that individual, or they were gone on arrival. And so now it's like, hey, sorry that you were the victim of a vehicle burglary and all your stuff was stolen. Here's your police report. Send it over to your insurance provider, and hopefully they can give you some restitution without your rates going up too much. Now, depending upon where that crime occurs, if we have cameras in that area or ALPR technology, we've had ALPR technology for 20 plus years. It used to be through Vigilant. It used to be through Motorola. Our HIDA, when I was a HIDA initiative officer and worked on the freeway for drug interdiction and for human trafficking interdiction, we had them on all the front of our push bars. So we were able to use that connective network. Essentially, since post 9/11, we've had ALPRs in our community and across this nation. When used reasonably, when bringing in the ACLU, when bringing in public defenders, when bringing in the DA's office and law enforcement, and coming up to your point, to those policies that hold us accountable to make sure that they're being used for good and not evil. I've read the stories too, but again, something that's happening 2,200 miles away isn't necessarily what's happening in our city. And that's where I need to earn your trust and show you this is our policy, this is how we use it, this is how we're preventing future victimology and people from the serial burglaries or the serial suspects that are going on. I can tell you to this group that we've solved 2 homicides this year, one at Washoe County, one at RPD, through the use of ALPR technology. So to me, that's worth its weight in gold. But we'll have those conversations moving forward. We will be transparent. We will show you about that. Additionally, with respect to the consolidation, this is my 4th or 5th iteration in my 27-year career where we've got to this crossroad where we've talked about it. And what I've told my team, and what I've told, what I will tell each and every one of you, is if it makes sense financially, if we enhance the level of current service that we're providing, if we have opportunities for our officers to grow, to work a multitude of assignments, and we get the buy-in from the community and the community supports it, it would be very foolish of us to not take a hard look at it. And so, does it make financial sense? Does it make sense from a monetary point of view? Does it make sense from an oversight point of view? And does the public support it? Without all of those boxes checked, I don't know that we go down there. Like I said, this is the 4th or 5th iteration in my 27-year career. We've never been able to get it across the finish line. But one of the things that Assistant Chief Garlock and I have done since we've come in is get back to basics and make good business decisions, because we understand in the business community that most government agencies would be bankrupt if they managed it like they did a government agency and not like a business. And we're trying to make good business decisions, look at the intelligence and evidence in front of us, and guide our department in that direction. You're welcome.
Jürgen Hohen for the record. Hey, good. How many drones do you have, and what kind of drones? I've experienced drone police use in Carlsbad, California, very well funded.
Yes.
Impressive. Great technology if used properly. How many do you have, and what a great idea.
We currently have 4. We're evaluating a 5th one right now to see if the service coverage is a little bit better. And then try to work again a more regional standpoint with our sister and brother agencies, because all 3 of us have 3 different variants right now.
Are they mobile? Because the ones I saw in Carlsbad, cop came, they deployed it in the street.
We have both. So we have drone as a first responder from specific locations that we can launch from. We have 4 pilots that are, actually we have more than that, but we have 4 full-time Part 107 pilots that are launching from our real-time intelligence center. You might have seen some of those released in social media. One of them just as recently as yesterday, where we caught a vehicle burglary suspect in GTA. As a result of that coordinated effect with patrol, with Slack pursuit, and with the drone as a first responder. But again, as we start to look at where we can make better business decisions and work regionally, it doesn't make sense for the sheriff's office to have one platform, the Reno Police Department to have another platform, Sparks Police to have theirs, and the Nevada State Police to have a fourth one, because they actually use their drones for MAID investigations for the overall footage of a major accident investigation scene. So we do have both drone as a first responder, and then we also have with our tactical teams the ability to launch from the site and give an overall from there. Because again, I'm the old dog now after 27 years. If we had Raven available, we had to get somebody that went out to the hangar 60 minutes to get them launched and oversight. By then, our perimeter was already broken. We were maybe holding a stale perimeter. Now we're able to launch, get eyes on. And what I love for our individuals that are running the day-to-day, our watch commanders, our sergeants are out there, is it allows them to set perimeters more cleanly. It allows them to either escalate our response or de-escalate our response based upon what our pilots are seeing in that space. A lot of times in law enforcement with swatting incidents, are you guys aware of swatting incidents? Where they call in and basically say active shooter, all these things get us spun up. We respond to the scene just to have somebody film and tape us and watch us. It allows us to truly get our resources on scene to evaluate what we have and make good business decisions. So we can either scale back that response or we can escalate it based upon the public safety need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give a reminder for the record. You did mention earlier about some of the calls that we get, or you guys get for Ward 3 regarding parking violations and stuff like that. I do want to emphasize also that it's really hard to get vehicles registered in the state of Nevada.
You're not telling me. I like literally just bought a new car and I couldn't even get in for a month and a half. So I'm like, wait, I'm going to get a citation or a late fee because I can't get into you for a month and a half. I agree. We need to be better.
Yeah, that's something, if you could, not right now, but later on, probably bring it up as a public information as far as how can we, the public, support either fighting the DMV or fighting not necessarily fighting, but where do we need to focus our, the push to, because it is an issue where even when I had to go to the DMV twice for a single transaction to register a vehicle. Before, I used to register and do a lot of things in the same day. Now I have to break it down into every single month, have different transactions, and that's
especially if you have to get a VIN inspection or you have to do any type of follow-up. It's perfect when it's perfect. You can do it from your phone or you can do it from a kiosk. But when there's one caveat to it and you have to go in person, it's very difficult to get in same day or even within a month. I did find out though, sir, that on Tuesday nights at like 5:30 is when they'll do a release of all of the appointments that have been canceled. So you might have the ability on Tuesday nights between that window, and I apologize, it's like between 4 and 7, you can actually get in the queue and you might be able to get an appointment the following day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, regardless, I guess we're a big population, and we're growing. And we need, in my point of view, we need more people at the DMV. You go in there and it's a beautiful facility, the one down in Double Diamond. It's a lot bigger than the one that used to be in Reno and everything. But now it's like there's 20 to 30 windows closed. And it's like, oh, you have all this extra space and everything, but what was the purpose if we're working with the same limited amount of people? But yeah, so that's something I wanted to bring up because then it becomes parking violations and people are getting their cars towed from apartments because the apartment complex doesn't see a license plate or anything like that. They tow it. And so it's really unfair for those people to deal with. It's not necessarily their fault that the DMV has, these these situations going on. So that's the only concern. Other than that, I do appreciate that you have the foresight to be more to try to do initiatives to get the public on your side, because that's very important. That's really And not necessarily the previous chief or anything like that. But for the longest time, we always felt like there's always a lack, or there's a floating step that sometimes is not there, and the public confidence falls because for certain situations. But again, like you guys mentioned earlier about explaining those things. Hey, we can't really talk about this because X, Y, and Z. Not just like, oh no, I can comment and that's it. And then that leaves that whole room to speculate.
Well, sir, you get down to one of the fundamental tenets of mobilization of crime and how it's reported. The only way that we can act upon it is when we see it happen in front of us, or you call us and you tell us that we're there, and then we go and we investigate a crime. So when we have a community that maybe is worried about their immigration status and doesn't want to call us when they're being victimized or they're being battered or things are happening behind closed doors that we're not privy to. That is really why I'm happy of working with our Latino community, working with Claudia Castaneda, working with Sandy Quinones, and working with literally Maria Davis and everybody in those spaces, because while there is a federal job to do, that's not our job. Our job is to protect our communities, to investigate crimes, and it's to, conduct arrests based upon probable cause. And if we have a certain segment of our community that is not mobilizing that crime, letting us know what's occurring, then we don't know what's happening. We can't change that behavior. And ultimately, we want our people to feel safe. So if we violated that trust and we have a significant demographic that's not calling us, then we've already failed. And additionally, and I think Assistant Chief Garlock might be up for the challenge since he and I both jumped in with both feet, but you might have to call the governor for the DMV seeing, sir. So I don't have any jurisdiction over that, but we'd be willing to take a crack at it as well.
Jurgen Hohen for the record. Yeah, to that point, for unregistered vehicles, there's to help enforcement. Perhaps there's something of a specific Latino education, and I have a real life example. So
that's where, honestly, sir, like Claudia and Maria and
Yeah.
Sandy, we've been working with them, the sheriff and I. When I was wearing the other hat, obviously because of that 1,200 person hotel that we used to run over there at
Mhm.
911 Par Boulevard, there was a lot of things that were being said about that. So we wanted to make sure that people knew, like, immigration enforcement and law enforcement are two different things.
Yeah, especially Latino outreach. The example I wanted to tell you was my handyman gardener, Gustavo, couldn't smog his truck. He did not know. I told him, hey, man, you can get an exemption. Register your truck, get your insurance, plus 3 years, no registration, no insurance, goes to a bar, gets pulled over. Now he has a DUI, weekly payment. And it's like that lower income Latino, non-education snowballs and more and more enforcement, right? And he has to pay supposedly for 3 years, 150 times every single week. The probability of not being successful is extremely high, even though he is an honest guy, hardworking, etc. But it's like that education portion in Spanish. I'm sure you're already looking into it.
I am, and thank you for reminding me, because we wanted to host at Reno Police Department a Latino Stakeholders Council meeting, and I think that I've been here long enough. It's time. So thank you for the reminder, sir.
Hi, Marie Rodriguez for the record. I know that I think it's once a year the different law enforcement agencies come together for like a community, I don't know if it's like a town hall or just a forum, because I know they did it once over at
I know what you're talking about.
yeah, they did it once at one of the high schools, I think at the New Hug, and then they did it once also over at the shopping center across from the Atlantis. Yeah. So when are those being held? Because I know those are really good opportunities for the community to ask these kind of questions.
Here's the problem with those. The first one was famously attended at the University of Nevada. We had probably over 500 participants, if not more. Anecdotally, I also teach Intro to Criminal Justice courses at the university, and I encourage my students to get involved in civic leadership by either coming to give public testimony during open comment and literally 3 minutes of neutral support. I don't care. I want you to get comfortable talking in your government spaces. I also gave them an opportunity to come into those. They started as the, what was the initial? Bias and Policing Symposiums, and then we kind of rebranded them based upon critical incidents and what were happening. We started outnumbering the public 2 and 3 and 5 to 1. So we're looking at reimagining that and how we bring people in. One of our most successful years outside of the first year at UNR was when we hosted it at the Boys and Girls Club, and we hosted a barbecue with it with all of the cool apparatuses. So we brought the SWAT truck, we brought the helicopter, we brought the canines and motors. Then nobody wanted to have the conversation about the critical topics that we wanted to discuss. So as we start working forward with this amazing crew over here and figuring out how we have those critical public safety discussions with our community and get our return on investment and the public's and get them to show up for that. We've just been unsuccessful to get people to show up the last couple of years. And the topics are important. I think the discussions are important, but getting our communities to come in also, figuring out how we recruit outside of social media, outside of blackmailing my students for 10 extra credit points and everyone else to get them to show up is really what we need to focus on, because they take a lot of time to put together. They are important, but we want to make sure that we're getting that civic engagement that we need.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony Dispenseri for the record. First off, I really appreciate the engagement that you guys are showing, coming and discussing these issues with our ward. I've been on the ward now for over a year, and I think this is the first engagement I've had in this sort of forum with you guys. So appreciate because I think it's been a little while since we've seen that kind of engagement. And so that's certainly welcome. I also want to acknowledge and appreciate you guys for the difficult and important and dangerous job that you guys do. Obviously, the public gives you a lot of trust, but it's a difficult and dangerous job, and you guys do a lot for our community, and we rely on you for the services you provide. We appreciate that. I have 3 specific things that I wanted to cover. First and foremost, I think the ward system is sort of like big pizza pies, and each neighborhood has its own specific issues. Like we probably, I live in, sort of the Midtown area, and that probably has very different neighborhood specific concerns than say Hidden Valley or down South Meadows and some of the other areas. And so I think at least I've done a significant amount of discussion around pedestrian safety, walkability, trying to be a more neighborly, inviting community. And one of the main reasons that people go and live in that particular area is because they want it to be walkable, but it must be safe from both a vehicular safety and a physical safety in order for people to really want to walk around, to feel safe crossing the street. And I think we have some significant challenge in our neighborhood specifically, which is, close Ward 3, the east side of Virginia, but generally close into that Midtown area, with people feeling safe and comfortable around walking around in general. And then very specifically, as you try to navigate toward the areas where people would naturally be drawn for restaurants and other, events, things like that. There are some significant ongoing safety concerns. And to that point, the RTC is going to present some of the exciting things they're going to develop that hopefully will address this. But one part of it is just physical safety generally, and making sure that people feel comfortable and safe walking around in the evenings and such. And obviously, I know you're dealing with limited resources, but I think different areas have different needs. And in that particular area, when people are more interested in walking around, but they don't necessarily feel so safe because of some of the things that go on in that neighborhood, I think more exposure to more patrols and other stuff definitely is helpful. And also very specifically, as you're crossing the street and somebody's doing 40 miles an hour down it, that's also a safety issue. And so having some of those, whether it's South Center or Holcomb or some of those streets that become highways, unfortunately, too often, some of the specific enforcement in that area would be certainly appreciated. So I would be remiss for my neighborhood and area if I didn't discuss that issue. And then with respect to Sarah's point and what she was talking about with Flock and some of the other things, I do think data and return is important. I would say, like I fully acknowledge, I know you guys have a difficult, dangerous job, and you're looking for all the tools you can to do it more effectively. But obviously, you guys are establishing trust and continuing to do so. But those tools are also used by immigration enforcement, by federal enforcement, and other things. All the data is shared, of course, and there's a lot of surveillance that's being done. And unfortunately, there's a big difference between a helicopter flying around and a tool that is surveilling non-criminal citizens on a daily basis and following, where I go every day to work, or, and unfortunately, there have been lots of instances where Flock employees and other non-safety officer folks have been doing things that are, like accessing specific cameras and trying, like there unfortunately are too many examples of people's privacy, who are clearly not non-criminal people being violated. And so there is a significant concern and a valid reason, not specifically for your department or anything else, but just generally about the Fourth Amendment and making sure there's no unreasonable, surveillance. So I would be remiss if I didn't say, to her point, showing, some of the successes having with that and good and bad, some of the, issues you've experienced with it, but also some of the data points around that I think would be helpful with, transparency and some of the other stuff that you've talked about, the big T, right? And then finally, just with respect to ongoing potential merger, I come from a city and a state from, where I was, where I've lived previously, where there was a lot of when the merger happened and the sheriff's office took over all of the enforcement action. There was a lot of financial pension specific concerns from the community around how that actually was enacted. And I don't know the specific details of those areas, but I do know in that particular city, there were folks that were where the pension situation got untenable. I was actually on the pension board, among other things. So I would just like to point out, that's an important consideration for, financial future security. I'm not sure what the specific details are around that. That's not my area of focus here. It's really in this community, but that was a net effect I've seen somewhere else. And so just kind of mentioning that as a potential concern.
And I'd love an opportunity to respond. Corey Solferino for the record. Number one, we don't share with ICE, period. So I know I can't control what other jurisdictions may or may not be doing, but we control who we share our data with, and we don't not share it with the federal agencies and or ICE. So I just want to put that misnomer to bed. Additionally, NRS 280 carves out what Las Vegas Metro did in 1973 as what it would take to do a metropolitan police department. The sheriff would not be taking over. Basically, the sheriff's office would cease to exist, the Reno Police Department would cease to exist, or any other agency that wanted to jump in would cease to exist, and a new Metropolitan Police Department would exist. So there's some misnomer in kind of the vernacular. I know words matter. And NRS 280 lays that blueprint out of what that would look like. They did it in 1973. Like I said, this is my fifth iteration in 27 years. We'll see if it can get across the finish line. As far as the pensions are concerned, that's all handled through Nevada PERS. So we're all through the same pension system anyway. It's not coming from the city of Reno is paying benefits to PERS. The Washoe County Sheriff's Office is paying benefits to PERS for retirement. Same with all the other law enforcement agencies in the state, notwithstanding the Legislative Council Bureau. They're independent of any of those contributions, as would any tribal entity. So Reno Sparks Indian Tribe, Pyramid Lake Tribe, none of those tribes are PERS compensable either.
Any other comments at this time?
We have Veronica and Pablo online as well. Veronica or Pablo, if you have questions.
Can we just remind our speakers that we are at the 3-minute limit, please?
Sure.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Pablo, and so I'm late, but for the record, I want to say thank you to Reno Police Department to keep us safe. So, and I want to give an update on the Neil Road substation that's going on. Are you planning to extend, remain operation, or any updates?
I don't necessarily have an update. So were you referencing like staffing it, opening up?
Yes.
We continue to use it as a substation for our officers in the South and Central districts, but I do not have the staffing to staff it for like online reports or is that what you're referencing?
Correct.
Yeah, unfortunately, we do staff the Public Safety Center at 911 Coonsley. I don't have the ability to staff the Neil Road with our current staffing footprint. So we continue to try to reach out to our constituents via online. If there are some reports that you can file online and write that report, and a record specialist will take a look at that and then assign it to a detective if it warrants further investigation. Sometimes we just need to formally document incidents for insurance purposes. We continue to try to make the public safety apps and online forum the preferred method of interaction, but we do staff the Public Safety Center. Unfortunately, we don't have any plans currently to staff the Neil Road substation.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Veronica, do you have any questions? Okay, seeing nothing from Veronica.
I have nothing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, if there aren't any more comments, thank you very much for that presentation. Appreciate it.
Vice Chair, I just want to check for public comment. If there's anyone online who would like to provide public comment, please raise your hand at this time. Okay, seeing none.
Okay, we'll be moving on to the B items. Chair Maya, did you want to take over the agenda?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vice Chair Marie Rodriguez. I do apologize for being late. I was caught up in traffic, but here we are. Let's go ahead and continue on with our scheduled agenda with item B1. Codex Resident Master Plan and Zoning Map amendments, please. Do we have a presenter in the room?
Yes, my name is Brooke Oswald. I'm with the REC Group. Good evening, NAB members. Appreciate your service. We're looking at a master plan amendment, zoning map amendment tonight on the Codexa residence, which is based on Codexa Road. Might not be. Oop, okay. There we go. So we're at 58040 Codexa Road. I've got a map. I'll show a little closer where that is. It's currently not in the city of Reno. It's in what's called the sphere of influence, which means the city of Reno has jurisdictional authority. Parcel number is 021-27028. That's approximately 5 acres. It actually, the county says it's 5 acres, but it's a little under that. It is vacant land. What we're looking is a proposal to bring that to a large lot residential 1, and we'll need the master plan to also be conforming on that. As I said, I'm planning entitlement. We also have engineering and survey, Christie Corp, and then additionally architects and the owners working on this. This is a privately owned piece of land. It isn't a developer or someone else looking at this land. So it's a little challenging to find here, but let's see if I can point with this.
I don't think it'll work, Brooke. What's the
It's,
APN?
so you can see 4 right about in the, if you go to the middle of the screen, then go up and to the left, you'll see 4 go down.
Oh, this one?
Right there. So we're just the bottom left on that is the piece. As you can see, the yellow is dictating that's actually BLM land, so it's not actually adjacent to the city of Reno. There's a number of in parcels in a larger federal parcel there. And so you're seeing approximately 4 5-acre parcels in this, and we're looking at the one in the lower left there. Once again, it's in the rural sphere of influence. It's really that rural open space edge. You can see there's a tremendous amount of development going on below. This is right by Veterans South Meadows. That's the Talus Valley development. That's finishing up with Lennar. A large portion of that's already built with the infrastructure, roadways, improvements all in there. So we are seeing a fair amount of density just to the west of this site. It's just a little cleaner, and you can see the new lots are already plotted and have gone through a final map process. So this is interesting. We are looking at so because it is the county, what happens is that there's a table to basically transition their zoning code into the city of Reno. So when this comes across, it comes across as 82% unincorporated transition, UT 40, and 18% large lot residential 2.5. And that's, once again, that's translated. As you can see, it's kind of awkward how it goes across property. One of the issues with some of the UT 40, the 2.5, where you've got 50-foot setbacks in some of the areas, and you have some other things. There are some constraints on the site, and there's a limited area to really develop on that site. And so we'd be looking at basically going up to a large lot, 1 acre and that's the next step. There isn't anything between 2.5 and 1 acre. So that's sort of the next option we have. Right now, with this, the way that it lays out, it really limits the property to having 1 unit on the entire 5 acres, and it puts some really constraints on setbacks and stuff with those larger zonings. This is our Truckee Meadows Regional
Planning Authority, they are a tier 2, that's suburban, so that is suitable within them. We just recently received the letter from them today. They don't have any major questions about that. There are some constrained areas on the land, a few other things, but those through future development would be missed. Keep going to, once again, 5 acres, large lot. We also have a master plan. So right now we have to bring in a conformance with our master plan, which is our high level and our next level. And so our master plan would be a large lot neighborhood that would also be going on that. So this is just showing what we'd be doing. We'd be going through that unincorporated transition to the large lot neighborhood for our master plan. We file these together, your master plan and your zoning map amendments. They move forward together. That's quarterly intake. That's why we came in July, and it puts us on a quarterly process as we move through with this. The master plan really is looking at that responsible growth. It's really context sensitive. We're not asking for a big, large development or anything there. We're actually just asking to sort of be able to rearrange and use that land a little bit more efficiency. It protects those natural resources. It's very low density. We would anticipate preserved open space in this. And then that protects that public edge land that we're seeing with that surrounding BLM. That proposed zoning is a little bit modified from what it is, but it's basically that the 2 zonings, and what we are doing is moving into a consolidated 1 zoning to help with future development. Like I said, it's 5 acres. It is under 5 acres, so we would never anticipate more than 4 homes on that 5 acres. What it does, updates master plan and zoning to be consistent. It resolves the split zoning across the parcel. It supports that low density, large single family use, and keeps the parcel boundary exactly as it is today. Right now, we don't have any building and construction approved. We're just looking at that very high level so that they can start to move forward. There's no subdivision by this request. We would anticipate with the 4 units, it actually doesn't go through a tentative map process. It goes through a parcel map process, which is an administrative process. Eventually, there's no change to a parcel boundary now, but we would see that in the future, and no site plans or developments. The advantages to the city and community, it's orderly and low intensity. It's consistent with our plan, all our plans that we have, and it's within the service areas. Right now, we're at the Ward 3. We did submit our application a couple of weeks ago. I have had the staff app meeting, gone through their questions and stuff like that, and working with Jeff Foster on that. Tonight, we're at the NAB. Next, on the 17th of August, per state law, because we're doing a master plan, we're required to have a neighborhood meeting. That is scheduled. We'll be sending out, I have invites go out to the surrounding parcels tomorrow. Then our planning commission, we're looking at September, and city council, the latter part of September. And then because of all this, there's several meetings. We finally have a regional conformance that we'd be seeing sort of towards the end of the year here. Project contacts, once again, I'm the EREC group. Jeff Foster is the case planner on this if you have any questions. And then I'm available for questions.
Anthony Dispensary for the record. I'm just curious with respect to this project. I know that Hidden Valley, of course, experienced that pretty unfortunate situation where they had mudslides and other issues that negatively impacted that area. And this is immediately south of that area. Obviously, we're pushing development further east into the hillside and whatnot. Is there a concern? Is that a totally different situation around what's immediately east of that could potentially create a similar condition? Do you know?
So with any development, what's going to happen as we move further stages would be a preliminary soils report, hydrology report. So you've got all your engineering reports, those going into final reports. That'll dictate usability of certain parts of land. If there's any faults on the potential faults on the land that need to be avoided, quaternary faults is usually what you'd see in that area. Suitability of land, and then your engineering types that you would have to, if you're to use the land, you'd have to use certain engineering or structural methods to secure the land or different things like that. And then the city of Reno has, through RMC and the Public Works Design Manual, a very strict sort of natural resources to embankments, riprap and all of that. So this would all, in the next steps, this will all be reviewed towards those codes and policies.
Anthony Dispensary, once again, I agree that there is a form and a process for
Yeah.
that, but obviously there was also a form and a process for the Hidden Valley's
Yes, yes.
entire development. And so I just wanted to make sure that we weren't repeating some of the same mistakes and ensuring that we have the right oversight to make sure that tragedy doesn't happen again.
Yeah, and I think just the awareness of, what's happened over there, obviously the professionals here at staff and the private professionals working on this would be aware as they move through this to avoid that same situation.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. I understand that what you're looking to do right now is just change this from unincorporated transition to large lot neighborhood. You say there's no plans to build right now, but ultimately, is that the goal?
Yes,
To get
yeah,
houses
like I
on
said,
there?
it's a private family that owns it and what they anticipate. We were looking at different ways because of how the setbacks set out in some of those larger, it's really hard to get more units. So if they wanted an accessory unit, or if they wanted, they're, talking that maybe one of their sons or daughters, or they want a barnuminium or something like that, it becomes really challenging to try to make that with the current zoning and the setbacks and how the property lays out. So this isn't intended for any intense development or anything. We'd anticipate, like I said, the most 4 homes on it. Yeah.
And it looks like, according to that map, that there is development that might be planned for that or going up right now. Is it going to be adjacent to that?
That is the Talus Valley development that's been approved below. That's approved for 4,000 units throughout all of that Butler Ranch in that area. Much as that's already built, so they're seeing improvements of roadways. They've got the roadway over South Meadows now, connecting over to that side and then connecting back, through this. And so this is some just unique in parcels within that federal parcel. There's a number of them kind of blotted through there. So it's a little different than that, but we are seeing intensification of development, almost adjacent to the site.
So is access to that going to be through that development or separate from that?
So there's 2 options because what we'd anticipate is that would be a dedicated public road once Lennar finishes their project. And so that would be, and then there's a roadway that goes up back behind. It's called the Cadexa Road, and that ties back up. So that would be either a private roadway or how that ends up developing in the future. Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, because I know we had somebody in here a few months ago, and it looks like they went forward with this battery recharge station, and there was some concern about noise and how it would affect people in Hidden Valley. Is that going to be near
Now-
that area? Is that going to be a
It
concern for
is
noise?
close. There's the substation that sits just to the south of this project. You're seeing some water stations in the in the south, and that Trago, the proposed facility, does sit. I don't know exactly how far, not adjacent, but it is up in that similar area. In that area, it's actually this would be closer than even the Hidden Valley through this area. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? No? Do we have any questions online?
Hey, I got a question. So, sorry about
Go
that.
ahead.
So, upon not doing for the records. So I like to make an adjustment for zoning change it to build more housing, but my biggest concern, the most World Street resident who soon to be near Terra Valley resident are concerned about the data center. So are you planning to what the data center look like? How many feet? Any concern?
So the project before you tonight is just for residential development. It would be 3 to 4 single family detached homes. So I don't know about the data center or how that would impact. We did talk about Trago, and I am familiar with that project that's proposed nearby to here, but I'm not familiar with any data center or anything in this area currently.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Veronica, do you have any questions?
No, just wanted to say thank you for putting such a wonderful and informed presentation. I appreciate that and love to see this coming forward.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no other questions from the board. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate that.
Wonderful questions tonight. Thank you all.
Chair, for the record, I'm not seeing any public comment on this item.
Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and continue on with B2. But before continuing on, is there any public comment on B2?
Yes, we will have some after the presentation and questions from the board.
Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and continue on with B2. Do we have a presenter present?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Charles Hutchinson. For the record, I represent WSP. WSP is the owner's engineer and the owner's environmental scientist for NV Energy. Joining me tonight to my right is Shazad Latif. He's the senior director for transmission development at NV Energy. And what we want to do is just present a brief overview of the Greenlink Nevada transmission project and the common tie facilities which make up part of that project, which is the subject of the conditional use permit application that we have right now before your city planning department. Just a brief agenda. We'll go into what the Greenlink Nevada transmission project is in general, and then we'll dial down to the common tie facilities, which are the facilities that we're seeking approval for in the city of Reno. We'll end with some project contact information and take questions and answers from the board and the public. To start off, this slide just shows the totality of the Greenlink Nevada transmission projects. There are three main components: Greenlink West, which originates in the Las Vegas area and then basically extends north and west toward the Yerington area. Common tie, which is why we're here tonight to talk about the specific transmission line highlighted there in green, which is the Mira Loma to Walker River 345 kV transmission line. And then Greenlink North is the third component, which basically extends across the central part of the state, just north of Yerington, east over to White Pine County, and terminates at the existing Robinson substation. So this triangle of transmission, if you will, when formed, will provide a more robust, resilient, and redundant transmission system to NV Energy's customers in the state. The dark line that you see there on the right-hand side of the map is the existing transmission line that NV Energy has constructed and has been in operation for several years now. The Greenlink Nevada transmission project essentially completes the triangle so that when completely built, it provides a looped, redundant transmission system to serve Nevada's customers. The purpose, as I just mentioned, redundancy, resiliency, and reliability. Redundancy means that NV Energy can basically maintain the system east-west, north-south. If there's a power disruption, they can shift the power from one part of the state to another through this looped transmission system. The resiliency factor comes in when we're talking about telecommunication facilities that radio information back to NV Energy's control center. And then all of those components build a more reliable system for NV Energy and its customers. Okay. The overall project start was in July of 2020, and this slide just kind of shows the progression of how we got to where we are right now from the beginning of the project. Back in 2020, NV Energy filed a joint application to the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada to amend its 2018 Integrated Resource Plan. So every 2 years, NV Energy has to provide an integrated resource plan to the PUCN to forecast demand and facilities that might be needed, as well as to identify facilities that are going to be retired in the near future. And that also comes with a rate case that NV Energy has to file with the PUCN to get agreed upon rates that they can charge their customers. This transpired, and then basically in March of 2021, the PUCN granted NV Energy the approval for the project components that make up the Greenlink Nevada transmission system. This kicked off basically the Greenlink West and the Greenlink North components of the project. Common tie is most closely associated with Greenlink West, and so that's what we'll be discussing here in a few slides. But the last part of the slide here just goes through the BLM NEPA process, when that started for both the Greenlink West and the Greenlink North components. I'm not going to go through in detail these next few slides, but this is just an overview of the the level of effort that's required at the federal level to get a project like this from conception to permitting. So it's a multi-year process that the BLM works through. Lots of public engagement, as we'll see on the next couple of slides. And a lot of resource impact analyses are completed to be able to get to a decision point where the BLM can say, this is the agreed upon route that minimizes impacts to the greatest degree possible. A little bit more on the consultation and coordination process. A couple of things highlighted here. Back in April of 2022, the BLM held scoping meetings, one of which was in the city of Reno, and 17 attendees came to that meeting, providing public comments that get factored into the EIS analysis. Here's just a list of all the different resources that the BLM has to consider. We often get questions about, did you consider desert tortoise and other kinds of resources, or what about visual impacts, or traffic and transportation, or socioeconomics that play into that? So this list just presents all of the resource categories that are evaluated in the EIS. And each route that was identified as a viable route goes through this battery of resources to be evaluated for impacts. At the end of the EIS document, there's this list of, literally from A to Z, all of the different management plans that basically correspond to the resource analyses that you saw on the previous slide. So air quality, water quality, cultural resources, Section 106 compliance, which is the federal government's review of National Historic Preservation Act requirements that have to be met. So all of this is basically a compendium of information that's included at the end of the EIS that goes into a little bit more detail than the impact analysis included in the body of the EIS. And highlighted there at the bottom, public comments and responses. There's basically an 18-volume history of all the different public comments that were provided during the EIS process and the answers that the BLM provided to public comments. So drill down to where we are tonight with Commentize. This map shows, it's kind of busy here, so I'll explain what we're looking at. Starting down in the lower right, that's where the 345 kV transmission lines that are shown in yellow start from that white dot. That's the Walker River substation, which is currently being constructed. It's about 10 miles north of Yerington. 345 kV lines, and to give some clarity here, 1 kV is 1,000 volts, so 345 kV is 345,000 volts. NV Energy's Commenti component includes 345 kV transmission lines. Those 3 emanate from Walker River substation, generally north and then west to reach Story County, and then continuing west into the city of Reno, which is where the Miraloma substation is situated. That's the termination point for the Miraloma to Walker River transmission line. That's the subject of the conditional use permit that we have in front of the city right now. This map also shows existing transmission lines to give the public some understanding of the context in which NV Energy is working within the region. Lots of times folks think that a new power line is the first one of its kind in the area, so we want to provide some clarity on the existing transmission network that the proposed facilities will fit into. And that's what the multicolored dash lines represent. The purple and the green and the red and the blue represent existing transmission lines. Drilling further down into the city of Reno's extraterritorial jurisdiction and city limits, this is a map showing right now where the proposed route from Miraloma to Walker River is situated within the city limits and within the extraterritorial jurisdiction. The kind of pink hash line is the extraterritorial jurisdiction. The beige outline is the incorporated city limits of Reno. And the yellow line is the alignment of the Miraloma to Walker River transmission line within the city's extraterritorial and city limits. All total, it's about 3.6 miles in the city's jurisdiction. So these two photos show what the typical transmission line structures will look like. On the left is what we call a tangent structure, which is basically structures that are in line with each other. The height range of those structures is between 85 and 125 feet typical. Each structure, though, is engineered specifically for the site that it's sitting on. So it's not a one size fits all because geology and terrain varies from one area to the next. So each structure is engineered specifically for the site that it's going to be sitting on. On the right-hand side is what we call dead end or angle structures, and those are a three-pole configuration, the base of which is a little bit larger than the tangent structures because those three-pole dead end structures have to support the weight of the transmission line pulling in two different directions. That's why we call them angle structures. It's basically where the transmission line turns at an angle to go in a different direction. And the height range there is generally 75 feet to 140 feet for the dead end and angle structures. So one thing that the public always has comments or a concern about is what is it going to look like from my house or from my favorite viewpoint? So what we do to help inform the public about what the transmission line is going to look like as best we can before it's actually constructed is to work on photo simulations. We have a visualization team at WSP that puts together photo renderings of what the existing conditions look like and then matches that to what the proposed conditions would be when the transmission line is constructed. So I was out here about a year and a couple months ago, and I was out on Veterans Parkway along the pathway, and one of the vantage points that we selected was looking back toward Miraloma Substation, which is kind of in the upper left part of the picture here on the top panel, which is the existing conditions. And then the bottom panel represents proposed conditions, and you can see just kind of in the middle part of the lower panel there for proposed conditions where the transmission line is visible above the landscape there. That presents what the transmission structures would look like from this vantage point if you're walking or riding your bike along the trail there. This isn't just a mock-up of what we think that it would look like. That height that you see there is the exact height of that particular structure on that landscape based on the engineering design, the latitude, longitude coordinates, the material that the transmission structures are made out of, which is a self-weathering Corten, which basically resembles a rusted color over time. It's not the shiny galvanized steel that you might see in other transmission line structures. So this basically helps the public understand what the transmission line will look like when constructed. And it's a pretty powerful visual representation and can help either allay a lot of concerns or answer lots of questions about what the transmission structures will look like when constructed. As I mentioned, the proposed transmission line route is approximately 3.6 miles in the city's jurisdiction. There's also another facility, a material yard, that's going to be situated just northwest of the existing Miraloma substation. That material yard is just a temporary facility where NV Energy will be receiving and storing materials necessary for construction, and then will be reclaimed after construction or upon agreements with the landowner that we've got a lease agreement with. This next slide just presents the permitting timeline that we've worked with your land use planner to get to. Back in 2025 in February, we had a pre-application meeting. That's standard practice for us because we want to meet with the jurisdiction to make sure we understand what the requirements of the application are so that we give a complete application and that satisfies city requirements or other jurisdiction requirements. And it just helps the process move more efficiently instead of a lot of back and forth. We have a pre-application meeting to understand what the requirements are. In July of 2025, we submitted the CUP application to the city of Reno. They initially deemed it incomplete because we didn't have either a landowner signature on the affidavit form or a recorded easement or proof of court-ordered possession that we're going through with the courts. So we had to work through that process. We resubmitted the application in June, just a couple months ago, about 6 weeks ago. Nathan Gilbert and the planning department deemed it complete and gave us the green light to begin the process to meet with Ward 6 last night, Ward 3 tonight. And then the anticipated meeting dates here in blue, future dates, we've got a tentative public hearing with the Planning Commission on September 2nd, and then October 7th in front of the City Council. Because the project is deemed a project of regional significance, we have to go back and do another round of review with the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency so that they can update their corridor map to include the Mira Loma to Walker River transmission line. So in addition to the local permits, there's a list of state of Nevada permits that we have to get, and all of these have been obtained. Nevada Division of Environmental Protection for air quality and water quality, Division of Forestry, which was on a separate part of the project in the Story County area, Division of State Lands, Department of Transportation. Anytime we cross an NDOT roadway with an aerial crossing or with an access road that we need to actually get to transmission structure location, we have to go through their process to get right of way, occupancy or encroachment permits. And importantly, the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada, the Utility Environmental Protection Act requires that we file with the PUCN an application so that they can approve it for anything that's greater than 200 kV. So the 345 kV being greater than 200 kV triggers that need for a UEPA permit to construct through the Public Utilities Commission. And then Bureau of Land Management, not completely subject to the city of Reno's jurisdiction here, but just again, some of the information that we've had to provide to federal agencies to satisfy federal requirements. Even on private land, there's federal requirements for air quality, water quality, stormwater pollution prevention. So even on private property, there's still a long list of requirements that we have to comply with to be able to actually permit and construct the project. Corps of Engineers for waters in the U.S. impacts, and then Federal Aviation Administration. We have to file, all of the structural locations have to be noticed with the FAA to make sure that we're not interfering with navigable airspace. The project schedule right now, we're engaged with local, state, and federal permitting through 2025 and 2026. Construction in the city of Reno is tentatively scheduled for spring of 2027. And at the peak of construction, the city could expect to see approximately 200 to 400 people moving about in different areas of construction. That may be from Yerington to the Reno area. Not all 200 to 400 would be in one spot at one time, just based on sequencing of construction activities. And that also gets to delays that may happen in material deliveries, global economics being what they are. We've ordered parts and equipment from certain places, and sometimes it comes in on schedule, sometimes not. So we have to balance that and remain flexible in the construction part of this, and trying to make sure that we've got all of the parts where we need them and being delivered to the material yards where we've got those designated, and basically working through any dilemmas that might come from delays from manufacturers and other vendors. The last slide here is just a project contact email, greenlink@nvenergy.com, where you can post comments and receive feedback from the team. You can also visit us at the website here, where you can get lots more information about the project in general. Nathan Gilbert's contact information there. And then citizens can also access the Acela Citizen Access there to get more details about the conditional use permit application that we've got in front of the city. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the board? I would like to start off. Was in any part of this discussion was ever brought up the what's it called, the opportunity to put this underground instead of overhead?
For the record, Shazad Latif with NV Energy, Transmission Development Senior Director. 345 kV with the level of voltage it is. First, it's very, very difficult, even if you want to underground it. From the transmission perspective, transmission level voltages at this level are never undergrounded, because every 4 or 5 miles, you actually have to bring them back up and put a substation or reactors without going a lot of engineering. You also have to, because of the size of voltage, you have to go significantly low underground to avoid any potential conflict. We looked at the cost just at between 500 and 345 kV. The cost, again, every 5 miles, having a $30 million substation to keep it underground, dig the entire line. It's just not practical, feasible. It's very, very cost prohibitive. 500 kV lines have never been done. 345 kV, I'm aware that there are some areas, I'm aware of it. I'm sure 500 kV is done in someplace too, but very, very short distances to go across, like a couple of 100 yards or maybe half a mile, so you don't have to build this. But yeah, it's not engineering wise practical at all to underground these level of transmission facilities.
Okay. And just a follow-up question, would this project overall be more of a benefit and specifically for the everyday consumer, or is this going on more towards aiding the energy offset that the Reno Tahoe business complex would be using out there for their expansion of the data centers and whatnot?
There are three set of common ties. Two common ties go from Urington, that Walker River substation, into the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. They are called Comstock number 1 and Comstock number 2. And that is, and then the third line comes into the Reno area at the Miraloma substation. These lines are specifically for the benefit of this region because these are, and from the State Utility Commission perspective, they have already deemed that these are 100% for the benefit of Northern Nevada, not for any other area. So it's strictly for that. Though those are with this level of transmission, because these are 345 kV transmission. It's not only to serve Miraloma substation or the Comstock substation. Those are just the entry point that allows other transmission at 120,000 volts or 230,000 volts to bring into different parts of this. As you can see, one comes on the Comstock side, and this comes on the little bit of south side of Reno. So you have the ability to serve the entire greater Reno area from both directions.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Any other questions from our board?
Anthony Dispensary.
Okay.
Anthony Dispensary for the record. My main area of concern is just specifically with respect to having the entry point into that community and where and how it might interact with anyone that's living nearby. Obviously, you're talking about extremely high voltage. And I was hoping that you could maybe talk a little bit more about whatever properties or homeowners may be affected by having such a high voltage entry point into the community. I think generally the concept of redundancy and and having a more secure electricity service into the community is a good thing. But I wanted to understand a little bit more about how that might potentially impact, because we just had somebody here who was talking a minute ago about creating like 5 houses in that general area. More seemed like, I don't know the exact area, but I was curious about that impact. If you could speak about that more.
So I'll touch base on the very, very high level and then hand over to Charles. There are private parcels that we are working with through different avenues. Some we have negotiated and some we are working through different avenues in the court systems because we have to get access into that area, and it does cross some private parcel. Most of this entire green link to the rest of the state of Nevada is built on BLM. Even common ties are significant portion of that is on the BLM land. But yes, it does cross a number of private parcels that we're working with. And again, we will have to get land access before we can build that. The height of the structures is such, so the way the structures are built, they do not impede any movement of wildlife because, again, there's no fences, there's no corridors that stop that. There's roads that can be built under a 345 kV line, and it will still meet access. These are with the 120 plus feet. They are higher than any bridge that you'll have, so you have clear access for any size of material moving or vehicles or any any traffic. So it does not impede any of those things, but it is something that you are visually able to see.
That's a follow-up question. This is not really my primary concern. My bigger concern is just if you have people living nearby where you can hear the constant hum of the electrical service. I think there have been some studies that say that if you live within a certain proximity to these high voltage lines, that certain bad medical things tend to happen to people and other. So I was just curious if there's specific residential impact associated with whatever's been proposed here, not so much vehicular access or Animal Crossing or other stuff, but just are people who live or are planned to be living in this area going to be negatively impacted by this? That's the question.
So 345,000 volt lines are built all across, and that's one of the primary reasons you have to balance that. So why we are building entire Greenlink at 525,000 volts, and when we bring it into the city, we bring it at 345. First, the lower the voltage, almost 150,000 lower volt, it reduces the noise, the humming noise that you hear from the transmission. 345 kV lines have very limited, if any, noise compared to the 500 kV lines. The other element is, again, the electromagnetic fields are lower. I can't really go into the detail on the medical impact, but electromagnetic fields, it do exist. And coming from experience in other areas, there are some areas where if you build houses right next to it, and then you hang an ungrounded metal component very, very close to the line. And typically in Las Vegas, you would have like somebody with a metal pole, like swimming pool pole, that they hang on the wall, which is not grounded. And then when you touch it, there's a little bit of static in it. So those are the kind of things that tend to happen with higher voltage 500 kV. 345 kV, that's the reason we lower the voltage to bring into the communities. And then once we go into those areas, 345 at the end, and bringing into the more populated areas is even lower, 120. So one, the structures are lower. Two, there's a lot of those concerns that you were talking about are mitigated.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. So I'm kind of curious about why we're looking at Greenlink for this transmission line. The maps show that all the other transmission lines were NV Energy, and now this line is Greenlink. So did NV Energy reach out to you to put these lines in? Are we going to be getting a separate electricity from Greenlink, separate from NV Energy? Are you guys like working together? How's that? What's your relationship to NV Energy?
So Greenlink is NV Energy. It's a project that's owned and operated, will be owned and operated by NV Energy. So this is not unlike other NV Energy projects. NV Energy is the proponent of Greenlink. It's just the name of the project. It's not a separate utility.
Okay, so you are NV Energy.
I work for NV Energy. I've been with NV Energy for 31 years.
Okay.
So I am the one who's responsible for developing Greenlink.
We're the consultant that's hired by NV Energy to do all the permitting for the project.
Okay, I just kind of wanted to understand where that relationship went. So when it said you had on there that NV Energy put in this CUP, and then it said that you put in a CUP. This is just NV Energy doing it under Greenlink.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from the structure standpoint, NV Energy, Shazad Latif with NV Energy. NV Energy has never built a project or program of this scale before. We don't have internal resources to build 700 miles of transmission line. Engineering, design, permitting, a lot of that work requires a lot of. So we hired WSP, previously Power Engineers, as a contractor, reporting to NV Energy. We have Sergeant Lundy as owner's engineer. We have Mastec doing the construction. Even though we have our own construction crews to construct something this big, we don't have internal resources. So we have hired these contractors working directly for NV Energy to help us with permitting, engineering, design, construction, and all those elements. But these are all owned and built by NV Energy as approved by the Public Utility Commission.
Okay, and just real quick to kind of follow up on what was asked before, just for clarification. So is this being put in because there's a need for more access to electricity in these areas? And is this going to just take care of what we currently have? Or is this planning for the future to where it will be there available down the road for more building, more, whether it's houses going in or businesses going in?
Correct. Charles Hutchinson for the record. Yes, this entire program is built to strengthen the transmission grid throughout Nevada. Part of that is in the Reno area. It's not just for commercial or industrial. This project got started about 10 years ago in planning stages at NV Energy. And then within the past year, the common phrase has been data centers and all of the concern about what those might entail. But this is for residential, commercial, industrial. It's to strengthen the entire regional transmission grid, not just for one particular applicant or developer who might come to NV Energy and want to connect to the system. It's for the entire grid itself to maintain a more robust system there.
All righty. Any other questions? Do you have any questions online from Veronica?
I have no questions. Just to clarify your last point, sir, you had said that this will be available for residential, commercial, industrial. Obviously, there's currently a moratorium on data centers, which has been a hot topic. In the future, if they do become legal again to have new data centers, so this could be a power source for them, correct?
Shazad Latif with NV Energy. When we are proposing this, currently, Northern Nevada has zero transmission import capacity. What that means is any customer comes in, whether it's an industrial customer, whether it's a data center that you approve, whether it is a new casino, any new customer that comes in who wants to take their power from somewhere else, we're unable to accommodate because they cannot reserve transmission. And even for NV Energy's existing customers, we have a certain amount of transmission reserved, and after that, we run out. So given that constraint, what Charles was talking about, this provides avenue for additional transmission import capacity. Senate Bill 448 was passed, and it specifically required an additional 800 megawatts of import capacity into Northern Nevada for those specific reasons. So at least the transmission capacity exists to support whatever type of growth. Going back to your specific questions on data centers, our NV Energy's responsibility is to serve any customers that the city councils or the counties feel are appropriate for their region. Whether you approve a new industrial center, whether you approve a new data center, our responsibility is to serve those customers. If for some reason data centers are held back or a different type of load is developed, our responsibility will be just to make sure that we serve that. And that's under that premise, we got approval for these programs from the Public Utility Commission of Nevada.
Thank you very much. Paulo, do you have any comments?
No comment.
Thank you very much. Valerie?
No comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Given there's no other questions from the board, thank you very much for the presentation. And in any follow-up, you guys, we can reach out to the gentleman before us, and we can get those get those questions answered. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, we do have public comment for this item.
All right, let's go ahead and move it into public comment for B2.
Veronica, sorry, did you have a question before we move on?
Yep, I just wanted to apologize to the team. I do have a little bit of medical situation. I was just hoping to push through, but if you all excuse me, I would love to drop off for the rest of the session today, and I apologize.
Thanks for letting us know.
Thank you.
Feel better.
Yes, we'll start with Jackson Crawford. Go ahead and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes. There's kind of a control. There you go. Perfect.
Okay, good
Good evening, Jackson Crawford, speaking on behalf of Sunny Hills Ranchos, the owner of approximately 33 parcels directly affected by NV Energy's proposed transmission project. So what I'm showing you here is Reno's code, which is it states what is required to submit a development application. So up there, it states, among other things, an owner, contract purchaser, or any other entity or person having recognized property interest in the land on which the development is proposed. So NV Energy seeks approval for transmission lines, transmission structures, access roads, related facilities that burden approximately 1,300 acres of Sunny Hills property. Yet NV Energy did not submit the owner authorization required by the city's land use regulations. Sunny Hills has not consented to the project. NV Energy is not the owner of these properties and is not a contract purchaser and does not possess recognized property interest in the land. So NV Energy points to a pending eminent domain action, but filing the lawsuit does not create ownership rights. No judgment has been entered. Sunny Hills has not even been served with the complaint. So next here, this is the owner affidavit form, which was left blank and not filled in within NV Energy's application. So this is standard requirement of City of Reno. You need the property owner's authorization to even submit or process a development application. So next we have here, let's get a picture of what's going on. So if you see the extraterritorial jurisdiction that NV Energy refers to, this, without a survey conducted, we cannot show exactly, but this is almost all entirely owned by Sunny Hills. So it's cutting directly across their property, over 33 parcels, including that parcel in the corner right here, which is Story County. It's also Sunny Hills property. So next, besides having an incomplete application, NV Energy seeks to, receive approval for high-powered transmission lines that are outside the regional corridor. So the City of Reno has adopted the regional corridor as approved by the Regional Planning Department. So they're putting the cart before the horse here. They're trying to get approval from the City of Reno before seeking an amendment from Regional Planning Department. Doesn't comply with the master plan of City of Reno or the regional plan. So lastly, we're not asking for the city to decide the eminent domain action. We're asking for the city to honor its code and Nevada law. So Sunny Hills respectfully requests, the city to deny the application. And thank you for your time. Happy to address any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Jackson. Next up, we'll hear from Trevor McLemore.
Just wondering in the meeting.
Just state your name for the record for us.
Oh, Trevor McLemore.
Thank you.
The only comment I had was how does this affect costs? Just NV Energy costs. I mean, my understanding of a public utility is we pay cost and then it's, I don't know, like an 8 to 13% markup or something like that. And so I just didn't hear that talked about at all. So I was just kind of curious what the proposed changes are. I mean, obviously we're all for reliability. We just had a huge blackout for the Midtown area for at least my block. But yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Trevor. With that, I do not have any additional public comment registered for this item online or in person.
Fantastic. Let's go on and move on with the scheduled agenda and go ahead into C2, the Regional Transportation Commission.
Just really quickly, this is Ed Park, board member. Can we continue a discussion on that transmission line with the people planning the transmission line and have them respond to the gentleman that brought an issue with that up? Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay, sorry for the mix up. Let's continue on with the C2.
1 second, Paul, sorry. Come on. One day I'll get there.
Good.
Not yet. Oh. There we go. Go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me back again. My name is Paul Nelson. I'm the Government Affairs Officer at RTC, and I've got kind of a two-part presentation tonight. We'll be talking about a ballot advisory question that we'll all have a chance to vote on in the November election, as well as some of the transportation projects that we have happening here in Ward 3. So the EV fee informational, you guys might have heard about this. This will be a ballot advisory question coming up on the November ballot. We at RTC do not support or oppose this question, but we think it's important to come out here and educate people on what the question is, what it does, and how we got to this point. So this will be the question once you go to the ballot box. Basically, in a nutshell, what it'll do is it'll ask voters if they want the legislature to pass a bill that would add a registration fee for electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles, and then also adjust it for inflation every year, kind of like we do with our fuel tax indexing. So that'll be what will be in front of people when they go to vote. And it will not be binding. If it does pass, it doesn't mean that there will be a registration fee for electric vehicles, but it does advise the legislature to say, hey, we do want this to happen or we don't want this to happen. So how our roads are funded today. As you go to the gas station, every time you go, there are local, state, and federal fuel taxes. The biggest chunk of that is local, and that's all designated to go towards our roadways. We do major road construction, we do pavement preservation, and we do safety improvements. Over the last 5 years, we've invested more than $420 million into our local roads, and we've also got a lot of work left to do. Over the next 24 years, in our regional transportation plan, which goes through 2050, we've got 107 projects outlined at $4.6 billion. So funding will be critical to get these projects done, especially as our area grows. We're adding capacity to some roadways and things like that. Some of the local fuel tax investments we've made recently, Arlington Avenue bridges, we just completed this in June. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to go out and drive over it. They turned out great, and we're really happy about that. We can get Wingfield Park back up and running soon. Southeast Connector. This was obviously a game changer for people that live in South Reno and in the Mira Loma and Pembroke areas, Hidden Valley. Mill Street Capacity and Safety, we just wrapped this one up about a week after Arlington Bridges. This one made a lot of improvements for not only moving vehicles through that corridor, but also adding safety and adding some ADA elements to it as well. Sparks Boulevard Capacity Improvement, this one is underway. It's been going on for several months now. We plan on wrapping that up in midsummer next year. And then the Meadowood Mall rehabilitation. That one was a smaller project where we did a full depth reconstruction of 3 small roadways right there around Meadowood Mall. But you can see the price tags vary. You got anywhere from $1.7 million for Meadowood Mall all the way up to $276 million for Veterans Parkway. So a lot of different projects that we have going on. One of the big programs that we have that we think is very important, back in the 1990s, we had a pavement condition index in the 60s. After the indexing of the fuel happened, we were able to use some of that money to keep our good roads good, and that's what this program does. Now our pavement condition index is up in right above 80, which for most municipalities, they'd be stoked to have an index like that. So annually, we treat between 150 to 200 lane miles. That's 2.2 to 4.9 million square yards. And that's enough to cover more than 1,000 yard football fields. And then annual investment, it's a lot more affordable to keep the good roads good and maintain them than it is to let them crumble and rebuild them. $51,000 per lane mile, $2.80 per square yard. And you can see at the bottom there, $23 million a year. That's a small price to pay compared to waiting and letting it crumble, end up costing $230 million. So the challenge that we have right now is that revenue is no longer keeping pace with the system needs despite our fuel tax indexing. If you look at the growing funding gap over the next 10 years, we're slated to have a shortfall of $1.4 billion for road maintenance and construction. That's driven by rising construction costs, aging infrastructure, and changing fuel consumption patterns. As you can see, inflation outpaced the producer price index by 110% over the last 10 years. So we are not quite keeping up with the rising costs of materials and labor. Some of the unfunded projects that we have coming up in the near future, Vista Boulevard, that's a widening project, $25.6 million. The West 4th Street Sparks Multimodal is $21.2 million. Connector between Cold Springs to Red Rock, that is a real hefty price tag at $165.8 million. And then the Pyramid Way Phase 5 widening, which is way up there around $232 million. So you can see, we have a budget of about $330 million a year. We can't do all these at once, so we've got to figure out how we're going to pay for all this. So vehicle miles traveled. If you look at 2020, that was kind of an anomaly because a lot of people were staying home, working from home. But since then, you can see that a number of vehicle miles traveled every year just in our region has been rising quite a bit. It was below 3.7 billion miles traveled every year back in 2020. Now, as of 2024, it was up above 4 billion. So people are driving more now in the Truckee Meadows than they ever have. But at the same time, they're buying less gas than they ever have. So back in 2019, you had almost 184 million taxable gallons sold, and that has dropped below 174 million taxable gallons sold. Big reason for that is efficiency, fuel efficiency. So a lot more people are buying electric vehicles, a lot more people are buying hybrids, along with regular standard cars. A lot of them are getting more fuel efficient as well. If you look at June of 2020, there were 6,300 hybrids registered in Washoe County. That's risen to more than 16,000 as of last June 2025. And then the green there, a little more than 1,500 electric vehicles registered in Washoe County. That's gone up 562% to more than 10,000 now. And we should be getting the latest numbers from the DMV shortly. I'm sure that they've continued to grow even more. So about 6% of all the registered vehicles in Washoe County are either hybrids or electric vehicles. And if you would take into consideration the vehicles that are hybrids or EVs, the fuel taxes that they haven't paid because they don't have to is about $15.5 million over the last 5 years. That's according to the Gwynn Center Bridging the Gap study. So it is having an impact on the amount of money that's going into our roadways. So part of the Gwynn Center Bridging the Gap study is they looked at different ways where they could capture some additional revenue from electric vehicles and hybrids. They looked at the main three: additional registration fee, which would be a real simple way to implement things. People already pay their registration at the DMV every year. This would just add an additional fee on top of that. So it'd be easy to implement, wouldn't really cost anything to do that. The vehicle miles travel tax, a lot of people think this is the fairest way to implement some kind of a fee because you're paying for how much you drive, kind of like you do right now if you're in a traditional car. The problem with that is it takes a lot of money to implement the technology. It also takes a long time to get that technology into place. There's also a lot of mistrust from some people. They don't want to have tracking devices on their vehicles that are going to tell the DMV how many miles they've driven. There's some privacy concerns with that. The electric charging stations, that's, anytime you go to a public charging station, that's another option that they looked at. That one really scored the lowest in terms of how much revenue generation it would be. Most people charge their cars at home. So there wouldn't really be a lot of benefit to that one. Here is a chart that kind of shows the same types of things. You can see the enhanced registration fee scored the highest. Number one, speed of implementation, equity and cost of implementation. The VMT, revenue generation, scored the highest, and environmental effects, kilowatt hours at charging stations. That was really the only thing that happened there. Utah did put one of those in place. their return on investment really was underwhelming. It was around $250,000 that they brought in. So that one, we've had a lot of people ask, well, why don't we, charge electricity like we charge gas? Doesn't necessarily work that well. So if you look at this map, it shows all the states that have already put some kind of a fee or a tax in place for electric vehicles. Nevada is one of 9 states that haven't. So if something does go forward with this, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can look at other models that other states have done. I should say the legislature would look at other models from different states. Those fees, they range from anywhere from $50 a year to $250 a year, depending on where you are. So after some of these studies happened, the Gwynn Center study, the most recent one, FM3 went out and did some market research. And they talked to registered voters and asked them, do you think it's a good idea to implement some kind of a fee for electric vehicles and then half of that fee for hybrid vehicles? And when you look at the graph right there, 61% of the people that responded said, yes, there should be a fee. 36% no. They also had an option of how much of the amount should that be. And overwhelmingly, they wanted $250 and then half of that price for hybrid vehicles. They also went out and they talked to people that own EVs and hybrids and people that are likely to purchase an EV or a hybrid in the next few years. That top line there shows the people that own them. 58% said, yeah, we should probably pay for our roads. And then the bottom chart there is the ones that are likely to purchase a hybrid or an EV, and that was right there around 61%. So it's been pretty consistent. After that, we had the indexing. So every year, the fuel taxes do go up a few cents to keep up with inflation. We asked the voters if they think that there should also be a form of indexing with the registration fee. You can see 60% are in favor of that, 29% are opposed. So a few months back, the Iran war started and we saw gas prices go up. So we were wondering, all right, is that going to affect people's opinions, the price of gas? So FM3 went out, did a second round of polling. This was in May. And we really got pretty much the same results. 6 in 10 people do say they support some sort of a registration fee for electric vehicles. So people that responded that they were in favor of it say that it's important to invest in local infrastructure, and requiring EV owners to pay this registration fee would really be a fairness thing. It would, be on par with everyone else going to the gas station and paying their fuel taxes. So it was really a pay their fair share type of thing. On the other hand, the people that said that they weren't in favor of this registration fee, they have concerns about government wasteful spending, and they also have concerns that this would discourage people from purchasing electric vehicles. So there are arguments on both sides of this question. So to back things up, we'll just show you a timeline here. In 2021, the state legislature passed SCR 3, which created an advisory working group to study this issue. And they came out with the Nevada Sustainable Transportation Study. About a year or two later, NCE did a maintenance needs study. And then in 2024, Gwynn Center Bridging the Gap study, that came out. They did this at the end of 24, early 25. And then FM3 did the poll late last year and then did that second round in May. Those results went to the RTC board. They approved sending this up to the Washoe County Board of Commissioners, and they approved putting this on the ballot for November. So why this matters to Washoe County is pavement preservation, keeping our good roads good, reducing crashes. Safety is always critical when we're doing our planning for our roads, and then addressing congestion to create less delay and create better mobility. So again, here is the ballot question that we'll all have a chance to vote on come November. And like I said, it wouldn't create a registration fee. It would just tell the legislature whether or not we want them to do that. So getting into the next part of the presentation, one of the ways that we do pay for growth is a regional road impact fee. So every time a developer comes in and builds a building, whether that's residential or commercial, there's a fee involved. When you look at the housing, you can see north of I-80, Single-family homes, every home they build, it's about close to $6,000 per unit. South of I-80, it's $5,400 per unit, but also commercial spaces, whether that's a retail shop or an industrial building, they also pay a fee. And that goes into a bucket. There's a bucket in the north, a bucket in the south. We can use that money to add capacity on roadways that the traffic is generated because of these extra units. So some examples of that are Steamboat Parkway down in South Reno, Sky Vista Boulevard up in North Valleys, Military Road in North Valleys. These are ways that we can pay for adding capacity without having to use taxpayer dollars. So as the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, we are responsible for the planning of long-term and short-term planning of Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County. So one of the things we're doing, and I think I've talked to you guys about this before, is the neighborhood network plans, splitting up the region into 12 different neighborhoods, and then we'll study 2 neighborhoods every year, and then the following year we will implement some of the quick builds that came out of that. So Central Reno, number 9 right there, and Central Sparks, number 7, were the first 2 studies. And what came out of that is the RTC Active Transportation Program. So the planning is one part of it. The neighborhood network plans, that's the planning part. This is the engineering part. So we look at new bike programs, walking programs for Truckee Meadows, all kinds of different things that we can do to improve walkability, bikeability within the neighborhoods. So people can go, a mile or 2 by walking and biking if they don't want to drive. If they want to go grocery store, to the park or to the school, things like that. So right now we're studying, I'll back up one more slide. Right now we're studying number 10, which is Hidden Valley, Meadowood Mall area, and also number 2, which is Sun Valley and Panther Valley area. So see, these are some of the things that we can expect in the Central Reno Neighborhood Network implementation. And you got curb extensions, bulb outs, where it just makes pedestrians a lot more visible for drivers as they're passing by. You've got neighborhood byways, which really kind of a traffic calming, conflict striping, and then you've got various types of bike lanes. So there are 11 corridors in Central and Midtown Reno that we'll be working on. And these are the streets that we've identified where we can do some of these quick builds, that we can do them for an inexpensive price and we can do them quickly. So you can see the list right there, Coonsley Street all the way down to Harvard Way. A lot of streets that we can make some improvements to make things not just safer for people, but also more comfortable for people. Another thing that we're working on right now is the Locust-Taylor-Kerman Wells corridor study. So you can see the streets outlined on that map right now, Mill, Plum, Holcomb, Kitsky. We're looking at all these areas to find out what are some ways that we can improve the safety and the capacity or mobility, just really doing a deep dive into these areas to find out how we can improve them. So this is a heat map that shows you where some of the safety needs are. Obviously, Wells Avenue is the biggest trouble spot. You see that bright yellow down there on the south end. Kerman Avenue also not too great. You got 105 crashes, 6 of them pedestrian, 3 bicycle. South Wells though, 202 crashes, 14 pedestrian crashes. 2 of those were fatal. 1 was a serious injury, and then 3 on bicycles. So you can see that safety is a concern in this area. This was just between 2020 and 2024. So within a 4-year period, just on Wells Avenue, more than 200 crashes, including 2 fatalities. So that's something that we want to correct. It's an issue that is important to the community. Everyone expects to make it home safely when they leave for the day. When it comes to public transportation, we've got a lot of different programs. RTC Ride is our fixed route service. We've got 20 routes. RTC Flex Ride is the smaller cutaway buses where we don't have the demand for fixed route, but we've got 4 zones where it's our version of Uber or Lyft, and you can go anywhere within that zone, or you can get dropped off at a bus station and then transfer over to a bus. RTC Access is our paratransit. RTC Vanpool is still in the top 10 in the country in terms of the number of vehicles we've got in the fleet. And we've got a lot of people, our biggest customer is Tesla Panasonic. A lot of people that do the Vanpool, they lease the vehicle, they get subsidies for it, and they put together 5 to 15 people that they can ride to work together. It takes a lot of mileage off, 20 million miles. Were taken off the roads last year because of this program. and takes congestion off the roadways as well. Other services that we've got, RTC Smart Trips, which is traveling any way you can other than driving by yourself. Washoe Senior Ride, this is our Taxi Bucks program. If you're 65 or older, a veteran, or a person with a disability, you can get that $60 card, and it auto loads every month for either an Uber, Lyft, or a taxi. And then we have a mobility center over at Centennial Plaza, which is really geared to help people with disabilities to really navigate when they get onto a bus. And then our public transit contractors, RTC owns the buses, we don't operate them. We hire Keolis to do the fixed route, and we hire MTM to do the access and the flex ride. We're also focused on future riders. EdPass program has been very successful. We saw upwards of 40,000 rides just from college students from UNR in April. And we're seeing a lot of consistency with that. A lot of the college students, they love the service because they've got a couple of BRT stations right there next to the university. They can hop on, the buses show up every 10 minutes. But it also serves employees of all four of the colleges in Northern Nevada and the students. Youth Ride Free, we just finished up our first year, which was a pilot program partnering with Washoe County School District. That is going to continue through this school year at the very minimum. The main reason we got into that was because Washoe County School District really wanted to address the absenteeism. They've also got some other programs that they were doing. We did see a drop in absenteeism, but it's correlation or causation. We're not really sure how much of an impact the transportation did have, but it did have a big impact in other areas, extracurricular activities, allowing high school kids to go to work after school, and allowing families that extra mobility to go where they need to go. So we're really pleased with that program. And on top of that, we do think that by introducing young people to our transit service, maybe when they get older, they'll keep using the service. All right, so getting to the projects. I already mentioned the pavement preservation program. There's three types of preservation that we do. Preventive maintenance is the lowest cost, crack seals, patching, slurry seal. Corrective maintenance is taking that top layer of pavement off, putting a new layer down. And then rehabilitation is when the materials in the roadway are still good, but the road is at the end of its life. So we can reuse the materials and then rebuild the roadway. All three of those save us a ton of money in the long run. Some projects we've got here, 2026, I mentioned Mill Street, we just wrapped that up. One of the biggest things that we did there was adding a traffic signal at Golden Lane, coming out of the Indian colony. And that has been really important, especially for pedestrians that we're trying to cross the street there. It's also freeing up some of the congestion. You would see cars backing up and blocking that street every now and then. So that's clearing up a lot of that. And then that bottom picture there, you can see the sidewalk. There used to be power poles there, overhead power lines. Those are now underground. The sidewalks are wider. That makes it a lot better for people with disabilities if they're in wheelchairs before they had to dodge the power lines. So that made it a lot better. And then the lanes that you see those cars in, actually in both pictures, we added an extra lane that goes directly to the east and goes onto I-580 southbound. We're really happy with this project, and it was completed back in June. Another one that we're working on right now is the Virginia Line BRT improvements. This is more down towards the Peppermill Atlantis area, where we're replacing the smaller mini BRT stations. We've also got the larger platforms from when we used larger buses. We're rebuilding those so that the platforms are lower, so that the ramp can come out of the bus. People with wheelchairs can get on it a lot easier. And then we're putting in a bus lane between Peckham and Plum. So a lot of work that's they seem like small jobs, but it's gonna pay big dividends in the end. Biggest Little Bike Network. This is 4 routes that we've identified that will really improve bikeability, safety, and comfortability for people that want to go from south of the Truckee River all the way up to the north side of Interstate 80. Some of those do come into Ward 3, Lake Street, Evans Avenue. You can see there's kind of a bend there. The reason there's the bend there is because that's where our bus facility is. So rather than having a bike going to the west side of our 4th Street station, there would be some conflicts with buses trying to pull out. So instead, we're gonna have them turn down and then go up north when they get to Greater Nevada Field, just to take the bicycles out of the path of the buses. The other ones, you can see Vine Street, Fifth Street, Virginia Street. These also tie in with other projects that we've already done. We just wrapped up the West Fourth Street downtown project. If you guys haven't been down there, there's brand new lighting, but there's some, basically that was almost the first phase of the biggest little bike network. There's also West Fourth Street safety that's happening where there's a multi-use path that will also tie in. And then down the road, we've got the University Gateway project where that will also enhance bikeability up through the university area. Also coming up here is the Pembroke Drive Capacity and Safety Project. This will be widening Pembroke from 2 lanes to 4, and it will also connect the McCarran and the Veterans multi-use path by putting a multi-use path along the side of Pembroke. So this project should be getting started here fairly soon. It's been delayed a little bit. It was supposed to start back in June, but not really sure why, but this one would be getting going pretty soon here. Another one that's coming up is the Galletti Way Corrective. I know Galletti Way is kind of one of those, it's a Sparks Road, I believe, because it's north of the river, but it's one of those roads that a lot of people use it from Ward 3 to get to Sparks or vice versa. This is a corrective maintenance job, so taking that top layer of pavement off and putting a new layer down really improve that roadway. That goes from Second Street up from, Second Street down by the GSR, and then goes up to Kitski Lane where the old D&D used to be. Next year, we've got Smith Ridge Drive rehabilitation, McCarran Boulevard to Peckham Lane. You can see it's the pavement's in pretty rough shape. As part of this project also, we are looking at the possibility of building some sidewalks on the east side of the road where those cars are parked on that middle picture. Right now, there's no sidewalks, and the sidewalks that are there are private. So one of the ways that we could do that is to build a sidewalk where the parking is, and then basically shift the road over. So over there on the west side of the road, it looks like parking areas, but there's no parking there. So it's just wasted space. So we could shift the roadway over, build a sidewalk, and then still maintain parking on the east side of the road. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Anthony Dispensary for the record. I appreciate the engagement that we had prior to this. You didn't really show some of the slides that I thought you might show for some of the projects that were upcoming for the Ward 3 specific stuff. I didn't know if you had any information on that you wanted to share.
These were Ward 3. All these are Ward 3.
No, right, but when we met, there was a lot of detail about some of the neighborhood specific stuff that the new routes. I noticed that you had like future for down Cheney and down Moran, but there was a lot more information that you had discussed in that previous meeting that I was hoping that we'd share with some of our board member folks. Yeah, but you had pictures and kind of stuff about what the road would look like potentially and some of the additional information.
We've got kind of models, with these photos are kind of the models of some of the things we could implement in the neighborhood network plans or the active transportation program. This project is expected to get started probably in the spring.
Yeah.
We planned on doing it this summer, but there were some delays there. We're getting closer to the fall. So in the springtime, when the temperatures are right, is when we'll probably start implementing these. Is that the?
Right, but and we the three of us and then Vice Mayor Martinez and others were in that meeting. I just recall there being a lot more specific details about you can expect this kind of thing in this area, and there was some discussion and back and forth about specific intersections of concern and other areas that I didn't know if we would get more granular or if maybe that might be coming in a future meeting engagement. But I really want to dial in a little bit more on that proposed plan and what to expect, because I think the community, I think our board members would want to share feedback on that.
Yeah, and one other project that I didn't put on here was we have an annual program called TSM, so it's traffic signal modifications, and one of the intersections that is really one of the biggest ones is not just modifying the traffic signals, it's actually looking at the whole intersection, Miralome and McCarran. That's one area that we will be having a project shortly. And that is going to really address some of the traffic issues that we see going into Miraloma Park. There will be another access point from McCarran into Miraloma Park, and it'll really reduce that backup that you see, not just on McCarran trying to turn onto Pembroke, but also allow the flow to get into the park. So there won't be as many people backed up on Pembroke or on Miraloma trying to turn in.
And then with respect to what you were describing on Wells Avenue specifically, I believe that some of the issue is because of having so many pedestrian crossings without any lighted crossings in a successive order, which is almost like the opposite problem of what we see in other areas where I think we could use some more pedestrian crossings. And I didn't know if you would have more specific details on what you plan to do to maybe mitigate some of that, or if you could share that with us in a future meeting.
Yeah, and actually, so the project manager for that, for the Wells and Kerman Taylor, she gave a presentation to the RTC board at the July meeting. And if you want to look at that, it's on our website. You just have to go on to rtcwashoe.com and you can find that presentation from past meetings.
Okay. The last question I had was specific to heat abatement. I don't know. I think there are some products that you can use as you're paving to try to reduce the heat impact that the pavement has. And we are the fastest warming ward in the fastest warming city in the country. And I didn't know how much you guys were planning on trying to mitigate some of the effect from, heat island effect from really a lot of it in our ward specifically is pavement related. And then of course, I know that you don't deal with urban canopy and stuff, but that's the other way that we could try to mitigate heat. But very specifically, are you guys planning on using any products that may abate some of the heat impacts that we're seeing that are causing us to be, unfortunately, the fastest warming ward in the country?
I don't know about the pavement treatments for reducing heat. When it comes to tree canopies, depending on the project, we do put in landscaping a lot of times, but that depends on the jurisdiction that we're working in because we don't own the roads, the cities and the county own the roads. So if we have a project, say the Audie Wells project that we did a couple of years ago, that one included planting 200 something trees. And so eventually that will develop into a canopy. So depending on the project, we will be putting in trees, but the cities have to maintain those. So sometimes it just depends on where it is and if they have the appetite to do that.
Jürgen Hohen for the record. Loved the EV fee. Very simple to implement and fair. I hope it's even higher, like 350. So
and that's something
I think that's fair, right?
And there isn't a set amount on the ballot question. The legislature could go with a lower amount. They could go with a higher amount. This has been talked about in the legislative session for the last 3 or 4 sessions, I think. They actually passed one once and it was vetoed. So this isn't new to them. They've been discussing it for a long time. The thing that's different is this is Washoe County centric. It would be given the legislature, if they passed this, would give Washoe County the ability to pass it.
Nice.
We kind of would expect if they do, they would make it statewide.
Right. And thank you very much for the presentation. It was very informative.
Thank you.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. Yes, thank you for that presentation. I'm looking forward to seeing that on the ballot in November. I'm also glad that you're looking at the Miraloma McCarran situation. Ever since Veterans Parkway opened, that's been a really, frankly, dangerous intersection. You have people trying to get in and out of the shopping center, people trying to get in and out of the park, and people trying to get in and out of those apartments, all within several hundred feet of each other. And I know with my day job that we have a lot of accidents at that intersection. And we also have a situation down at Rio Poco. I don't know if you've been looking at that as well.
McCarran and Rio Poco.
McCarran and Rio Poco. Going into the neighborhood, Rio Poco backs up a lot during the school year with parents dropping kids off at Donner Springs and picking them up. And that intersection doesn't have a turn arrow crossing McCarran on Rio Poco. So we have accidents there because of people thinking, oh, I have a green light. They think they can take a left. And if people are heading east on Rio Poco, those lead to accidents as well. So I hope that will be looked at as well.
There was actually a McCarran Boulevard corridor study,
Mhm.
I want to say in 2022, 2021, 2022, where they looked at the entire McCarran loop. And they looked at section by section, what improvements they can make for safety and capacity and things like that. And that stretch that you're talking about, that kind of goes from right there by the park over kind of by Airway Drive, just to the east of Meadowood Mall.
Mhm.
There is a possibility of reducing lanes on McCarran through there. So I don't know if that would have an impact on Rio Poco or not. Is it Rio Poco? Poco Rio?
It's Rio Poco and it's at McCarran.
Yeah. But there are improvements that have been identified. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of now putting them into the plan and getting the funding and implementing those.
Well, it's not so much the traffic on McCarran, it's the people traveling on Rio Poco. Some people turn onto McCarran and some cross McCarran, and that's what causes it. And while we're on the subject of Rio Poco, I would also like to see some more speed enforcement, like maybe traffic, what do you call it, speed control things along Rio Poco, going all the way down past Reggie, because people drive through there and it's on a curve and there's a pedestrian crossing right there. And you have a lot of people walking to the school on there during the school year and people going too fast through the neighborhood.
That could be a possibility for that, the traffic signal modifications.
Yeah.
That could be a candidate, an intersection that they could benefit from it.
Yeah, thank you.
For the board, we're within a 10-minute mark of having to adjourn the meeting. Per the resolution, we have 3 hours. We're at 8:21 p.m. So just want to make everyone aware of that. Valerie, I know you had your hand raised online. We still have time if you have questions.
Okay, Valerie Tilson for the record. I'm going to come on, follow Marie on the Mira Loma. At 4:30, the traffic gets backed up in front of the apartments. And so if you're trying to come out of the Sierra Madre onto McCarran and you see the traffic backed up, you're thinking, okay, I'll try to go to the next lane. And you're like, oh, please, no one hit me. So it is a very dangerous, and I don't know if there's going to be any more synchronizing of the light at Rio Poco, which is the light that follows McCarran. Because we have McCarran that has the merge, so now we have double the traffic because there's no controlled stoppage of the McCarran flow on the long way onto McCarran. And so when that traffic is a free turn to turn right and they go to Rio Poco, you have even more traffic. Okay, a third turn off on Rio Poco, but the rest continue. Okay, are they going to turn on Sierra Madre? Are they going to go to the shopping center? They have their turn signal on. Well, if you're at McDonald's trying to get out, you're like, is it the turn signal going to be for driveway number 1 coming in 2 exits before McDonald's, or the McDonald's exit, or the 7-Eleven exit before you even get to the McCarran? So there needs to be, I think, controlling the lights, synchronicity would be a major improvement for the intersection. Thank you.
And some of the things that we are doing with signals is we've been installing intelligent transportation systems where the signals are connected by fiber optics. And so that the signals can actually communicate with each other. And in the not too distant future, we're also going to have a traffic management center at RTC where we can actually have somebody in a room seeing where the traffic situations are happening, where they can actually manually control the traffic signals to help benefit the flow of traffic.
All right, thank you very much.
Pablo, do you have a question? Okay, anybody else from the board? President, have any questions or comments?
Anthony Dispenzario, real quick for the record. I just had one more follow up. Before you start that project to improve some of the areas that were in the neighborhood the more localized neighborhood we were talking about. Will we have any more opportunity to see more details or what specifically is going to happen? Just because I thought we would have a little bit more granular look at that project and hopefully some input opportunity before that. But it sounded like you might have started the summer and it might start this spring, but I just didn't know if we're going to see any more details before that kicks off and if we had any opportunity to engage meaningfully to make sure that it's appropriate for it's going to address some of the concerns that the community has about that area.
Yeah, and I think we will definitely have more opportunities to come back here and talk to you guys before next spring. And I could talk to the project manager about getting into more of the details of what some of those improvements will be.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thanks for the presentation. It was pretty robust, I believe. And thank you for everything you have done. All right, let's continue on with the agenda with item D. Do we have any comments from the board? Any upcoming events that we want to bring up to the community?
Probably not one for the workers. So last week, the naming community for the new elementary school for Pine Campus have been selected for top 3. Give a list. So we gave a list. First one, first Smith Street, second Julieta Liano. I'm sorry I mispronounced her name. But third is John Friend. And I expected the school board meeting is going to be at next week, Tuesday, at the Night Street, 2 p.m. There was the which name of a school would be named, and a new elementary school Pine Campus in New World area.
Okay. Anybody else? No? All righty. So let's go ahead and move on. Do we have any more public comment in person or online?
We do not have any participants online, and I do not have any public comment cards.
Very good. Then let's go ahead and move on to adjournment of the meeting. Can I get a motion and a second from the board?
Jorgen Hohen, motion to adjourn.
Marie Rodriguez, a second.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.